Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another edition of the Reality TV RHAPpy Hour. My name is Jordan Parhar, and this week I'm here to talk some Big Brother with you on RHAPpysWebsite.com. Today, we are going to kick off the new year in style. Yes, it's 2016, and I figured, you know what, why not get a big old podcast for you guys, something that people have been asking for a little while. So once again, the Rob as a Podcast live feed correspondents are here with me today to rank the best non-winners in Big Brother history. So should be a very fun show today. I'm very excited. Let's go around the horn. First, he has the record for the most appearances other than myself on the RHAPpy Hour. He's the unofficial co-host of the RHAPpy Hour. They call him the closer. It's Taran Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen. Taran, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm going to be closing out this list with the definitive answers. That's what's happening.
Oh, all right. There we go. Taran he's going to be bringing the heat. All right. Below Taran, at least from my perspective, maybe after this video is posted, he won't be in that position. But below Taran, we'll go around the horn. He is somebody who he's probably the most entertaining of all of us here. He's the loudest.
Stop.
He likes throwing the shade. He's great. It's the great Brent Wolgamott, ladies and gentlemen. Brent, how are you doing? Happy New Year, man. What did you do for your New Year's, Brent? Because I imagine you did something more interesting than I did.
Well, I was taking people's money at the casino. Casinos are very busy. By the way, I want to say Happy New Year to you all. I can't believe another year has passed since we started this whole thing. You've all gotten so old. What happened?
Well, I wasn't here when you guys started this thing. I was off in a magical land, in a house,
watching you.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, you guys were watching me. It was great. But Brent, glad to have you here again as always. And last but not least, he's taken the time out of his day to not watch the Washington Redskins play football because you know what, they clinched the NFC East, which blows my mind still to this day. It's my good buddy, Alex Kidwell. Alex, how are you doing? And what do you think about the Redskins? You think that they can actually do something in the playoffs?
Oh, that's the beauty of the playoffs, Jordan. It's a tournament and anyone can do anything. You know, last year, the Panthers got in there at 7-8-1, and I think they won a game, right? So, I mean, yeah, you never know. And, yeah, you know, I've really learned something about football this year. I don't know. It took me like 20 years of watching, but I came in and just maintained no expectations whatsoever all season. Like, even when we were a game away from clinching the playoffs, I was confident that, like, you know, we're not going anywhere. And then, you know, like it's just playing with house money at that point. You know what I mean? So I've just learned like that's the way to watch football for sure. It's just expectations at the floor and just, you know, have some hopes. But, you know, I took a step back this year and I'm glad I did because now I'm much happier for it, I think.
No, I think that's the move really with sports and with life is go in with no expectations, especially if you're a fan of an NFC East football team, and good things will happen to you. If you go in expecting you're going to win the Super Bowl, like I thought with the Dallas Cowboys this year, then you're going to probably leave very disappointed. But that's another podcast for another day. We're here to rank these best non-winner Big Brother players ever. So this should be a really fun show today. Taran, why don't you explain to the listening audience what we're going to be doing this afternoon?
Well, as Alex just explained in sports, a team can go in 7-1 to the playoffs and then still lose. And so we're going to explain who the people are that went into Big Brother with a good record, or maybe would have a good record if players can have a record, and they still lost because, you know, things just didn't go their way. They're still great players, but they didn't win, so they don't get as much attention as maybe the winners do. So we're going to talk about those people and who is the best among them.
Nicely put. Yeah, well done, Tara. Now, Brent, you actually were the first one to throw this the idea on how we ranked these people. So why don't you explain the point system that we used rather than the ranking average system that we used for the other two ranking shows?
Well, I think it was just an invention by necessity, mainly because I was stunned to see, and I guess I shouldn't have been, but you know, covering 17 seasons of Big Brother, I was stunned to see how different and disparate our lists were, especially, you know, that 5 through 15 area. So what we did individually was we ranked the best players to never have won Big Brother, our top 15. and we turned those into JP. And then JP tallied up the results based on using a point system where we assigned 15 points to the people that we each individually ranked in first place, 14 points for second on down the list. We had to do that because there were some people in our list who just didn't have a rank. Like, there's a person in my list who's not on anybody's list, and I have that person in my top 5. So you can see how using a ranking system would be it wouldn't be doable right now.
Yeah, so that's basically what happened, and as Brent alluded to, lots of variance in this thing. Alex, were you surprised that we had such different rankings? Because normally, at least for yourself and Taran and I, we at least had somewhat similar ranks, but this time it's just completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on just an initial take, it's kind of surprising, but when you really think about it, and when I really kind of looked into it and really, went through each season, and really kind of the way I did it was I started just blanketly adding people to a master list that might even be in the conversation. And the list was a lot bigger than I think I realized it would be, because, whether or not that's I was giving people kind of the benefit of the doubt and just throwing them in and then crossing them off later, or not. I mean, it is interesting to see that, I think this is much more subjective than anything we've done up to this point. I think, certainly like you talked about, there's a few names that we all kind of had in the conversation that are very kind of obvious, very kind of clear people that come to the forefront of the mind when you have this kind of a conversation. But then, that's why I think it's also great that we went to 15, because you're able to see some good variance. I think there are people that ended up on your guys' list that maybe just missed my list, or in some cases we're way down there. So I think it'll be interesting to talk about kind of how we got there.
And that's something that I think we should probably, before we start, touch upon, is that these are our opinions. And as Alex said, this is going to be the most subjective rank really of any of these ranking shows we've done. So we're probably going to get the most negative feedback on this one compared to the other ones, because believe it or not, the other ones we got some pretty positive feedback. But this one, when it comes to ranking the best non-winners, it's hard to rank them because we have such a small sample size, and also it's just differing opinions based on what your favorite season is and who you like and all this kind of stuff. So your style of gameplay you enjoy. So I just want to preface this podcast with that. And these are our opinions. We are not a definitive source of, knowledge or anything. This is just how we view things. So if your favorites don't make the cut, I'm sorry. This is just how we view it. And let us know what you think after the show, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of varying opinions. Now, Alex mentioned we started the list at 15, but I decided to make our rank a top 12 just because the bottom, really, from, as Brent said, from 5 to 15, it was just we were all over the place, and especially the bottom 5. I mean, I feel like we had 20 different names amongst all of us. It was just different people the whole time. So we cut it down to 12. And instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to mention one honorable mention each that did not make the cut. So that we're all going to go around. We're going to talk about our one champion, if you will, that didn't make it, and why we think that they deserve to be in this list, but they didn't make it for whatever reason. So let's again go around the horn. Let's throw it to the great Taran Armstrong. Taran, who is your honorable mention that did not make the top 12 list of the best non-winning Big Brother players of all time?
We're going straight for the controversial ones. So I believe I was the only person to have this guy on my list, and he was number 7 for me. So pretty high. Cody, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, from Big Brother 16. Yeah. So, he's criticized pretty heavily for taking Derek to the final 2. And that's like the big move that everyone says, that's why he's a terrible player. But I think you can't ignore the entire season leading up to that. He was an instrumental part of Derek's success, especially in the beginning of the game when Derek did not have the kinds of relationships that Cody had. And the reason that Cody thought he could win against Derek is because he did have closer relationships with the people in the house. The problem was that Derek was just smarter than him and outplayed him. I think getting outplayed by Derek isn't something that should be too heavily criticized, considering he's one of the best players to ever play. Obviously, not taking Victoria when Victoria is obviously the better choice. There's some reasonable explanation for it. Like, they did talk about giving Victoria the win if anybody took her. They made that pact, and that was Derek's doing again. You also have to consider the fact that Derek would have taken Cody. Sure, Derek knew that he was going to win against Cody, but he said extensively, no, I would take Cody no matter what. I was never going to betray him. And, maybe he's lying, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think Derek really would have taken Cody. I think he was confident enough that he had enough of a shot that he could win against Cody. And if he was in Cody's place, I think he would have chosen to bring himself over Victoria as well. So if you're going to criticize that for Cody's game, you also have to criticize it for Derek's game. I don't think it's as dumb a move as people think. I think that he was worried about Victoria beating him because of the pact. I think he didn't realize everything that Derek had done the whole season, which is hard to criticize because nobody realized what Derek had been doing all season. And apart from that one mistake, obviously there were more mistakes along the way, but chief amongst them being not being able to secure the jury votes against Derek, which I honestly think is a much bigger mistake. But throughout the game, he was making moves, he was strategizing, he was up late with Derek almost every night, talking about their next move. He was very good at the game, and I think that if he went back, he would do very well again.
Okay, Brent, I've seen you make a few faces. Why did you leave Cody off of your list?
Well, let me say right off the top that I don't have a problem with him being on Taran's list at all, and B, him being Taran's honorable mention today. I think Cody played a fine game. I did not put him in my top 15, mainly because I couldn't get over the final two decision. I just couldn't. And I also, something that Taran said really struck me, and this is when I made my face, was, he was an instrumental part of Derek's win. Yeah, he was an instrumental part of Derek's win. He had nothing to do with his own game. I mean, he wasn't playing for himself. I honestly felt like there was a part of him that was playing for Derek and by extension, Derek's family. I really do think there's an honorable part of Cody that is, lacking in some people, and it's just there in others. We've seen it in Big Brother. We've seen it in Survivor more, where there's just a moral compass where you just cannot betray this person. And usually that person is not left holding, or that person is left holding the bag. They usually never get any credit for being the moral conscience of the season, if you will. I really thought that if Cody had a few more years on him, I do think he would have realized that if you really thought about it, if he took Victoria to the final two, you're going to tell me that all of those people in front of America and a live audience and Julie Chen are really going to put a key in the box that says Victoria. I think he would have probably made a different decision. I mean, there was no universe where that was really going to happen. And this is also the other thing that really bugs me about some of these decisions made by some of the other people on this list, because whether or not you know it's going to happen, I feel like you have to make that move to give yourself a chance at the win. You might not win if the pact goes through, but there's a chance you could win, whereas at the other road, there's virtually no chance you could win. And you should know that, having spent, 13 weeks with these people.
Go ahead, Taran.
I think you're right on about Cody playing for Derek, really. The reason I have him so high is because I think he has the tools and he has the ability to do really well. The problem was that he was there with Derek, and Derek was able to use him to his own end. So if Cody's there without Derek, or if he's there now having played with Derek, and Derek is not there the second time, I think he can do really well. And I think put him in a random season without somebody like Derek, and I think he does really well.
Alex, do you agree with that? Do you think that Cody would do really well? Because from my perspective, I felt like there wasn't much Cody did on his own without the help of the great Derek Levasseur.
Yeah, Cody's an interesting case because I think he was someone that I was at first dismissive of when we were thinking about doing this. And then when I started going back and looking at it more, he actually ended up being a lot closer to making my list than I would have ever thought he would be. I certainly, you could argue that he's not the next best player in Big Brother 16, and I'm sure someone will pretty shortly. But, I think there's a lot of qualities to his game that are very, very positive. I almost wanted to do a cop-out with my honorable mention and make it recent players to a degree, because I think that there are players who are kind of thought of as like replacement level players that have played in 16, 15, 17 that would actually do very, very well in an older season where there's not, and granted they've been able to see the older seasons, but so have the people they've played with. So you know what I mean? Like a brigade works, but a moving company doesn't. Like, Hayden's game is flawless and Drew's game is flawless, but Cody is up against a Derek. You know what I mean? So it's also, that's the other thing is like, if Derek's not in the picture, it's hard to know, like we don't have an example of what Cody looks like with Derek and what Drew Daniel looks like with Derek to compare. We have Drew without Derek and Cody with Derek. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of comparisons you can make to players who won the game. And then also I think someone that made all of our lists, if I remember right, is Memphis Garrett. And I think, something that really struck me. Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes without saying. And I think something that really struck me that I wouldn't have considered earlier is that there is a lot of similarities there in that I think both Cody and Memphis are very good at flirting with women if they need to. If they want to go that route, they can definitely like kind of bro down with the guys if they want to go that route. I think they both hurt from the same thing, which is they almost have a little bit of an in-game like robotic wooden quality to them, where someone like Derek or Dan next to them looked a lot more human and was able to relate to people better and just kind of looked like the superior of the pair. I think, both guys kind of showed similar strengths that would play well to most seasons. So, Cody didn't quite make my list, but I can certainly understand the argument.
All right, let's move on to the next honorable mention of this group. So Taran's was Cody, and yeah, I can't really say his last name either. It's Calafiore. Calafiore. Thank you, Brent.
I've heard Derek say it a bunch of times, but
yeah. So there we go. So Brent's got it on lock, and Brent's got the next one on lock. Let's throw it to Brent. He's got somebody also from Big Brother 16 as his honorable mention that did not make the cut.
Right. And I can't even believe I'm putting this person on my list. I really can't. It was between there. Let me just say that I had 3 people in my top 15 who were not on anybody else's list, and somebody in my top 5 was on anybody else's list, and that person isn't even my honorable mention. I had Frankie Grande at number 6, and he's my honorable mention. And let me just say from the outset, I absolutely detest him. He's honest. I heard somebody say this before, and I'll say it. I'll repeat what they said. He's the worst kind of gay. He really is. He's just such a whoremonger. He just doesn't know how to take no for an answer. He's just he sponges off the fame of somebody else in his family, but then says, "Oh, look at me. What have I done?" You've done nothing. But in the game of Big Brother, he was fantastic, and I have a problem with the fact that nobody else really considers him. And in fact, I was laughed at by some members of this panel when I put him as my honorable mention because of the fact that if you remove the reset from Big Brother 16, I think Frankie wins. I really do. I mean, who is beating him in that Final Four veto? You're going, really? I mean, I don't see Cody doing it. I'm serious. I know he won.
Frankie, I swear I would smoke you in the final 2. Yeah, Amber told me she would vote for me.
We're gonna get to see him soon. Anyway, so I really do think that Frank played up. Wait, let me finish what I'm gonna say, and then you guys can respond because I let you talk.
I just had a joke.
Frankie. Oh, well, okay. Go. Well, we've missed the moment. Sorry, Terry. Sorry.
No, Brent, keep
going. we can have a joke session on Beast Mode Cowboy at some point. I'm sure. Right. Intermission.
I just. Like I said, he, for all of his faults, and he has many of them, he won, and this is going to be a recurring theme throughout my top 15. He won competition after competition in this season, and that is an element of gameplay. You have to give credit to that, and he also had the respect of his peers. If he makes it to the end against anybody but Derek, I think he wins. He played a masterful game. If not for the reset, I think that he is clearly in the mix to be the winner of this season. His only problem, from my point of view, and I guess I should leave it to other people to pick holes in Frankie's game, was the fact that he didn't have a ride or die. He didn't have a final two. He didn't have someone who would go to the end of the earth with him. It should have been Caleb. I think they realized that after the fact, but in the moment they just couldn't see it. But he did everything you want to do in Big Brother. He got himself into a great alliance. He was protected by other people. People tried to take him out. He saved himself. He wasn't in danger virtually until the end, when a better player, who was ironically the winner of the season and somebody all of us had in our top three and I had as my number one, if I recall, ended up cutting him. So tell me how he is not one of the better players to not have won a season. He had a real chance to win 16, and it was taken away from him by a twist that I really think, in view of Derek's game, people really dismissed that twist. But it was huge, because if Victoria is out of the mix and Frankie and Caleb are in the final four with Derek and Cody, it is a battle instead of the march to the end that we saw when Derek was able to use Victoria, much like Brian Heidick was able to use Jan in his season. It's just a chess piece on the board. You know when you're going to get rid of her, and it's something that is powerful to you, but is an impediment to other people. So that's why I have Frankie on my list. Go ahead. Sorry.
Wow, I did not expect a Survivor Thailand reference today, but look at that. Brent pulling out all the stops. Alex, now everyone, we're live on Blab. I didn't mention that off the top of the show, but people in the chat room were going nuts when Brent said Frankie Grande, because Frankie is a very polarizing individual. Alex, why leave Frankie off of your top 15 list? Because Brent does make a lot of valid points. He did have a ride or die in Zach, and he let him go and he turned on it. But other than that, I mean, competition wise, Frankie was very solid.
Yeah, no, I think, Brent makes a lot of great points, and I think Frankie certainly has a lot more checks in his column, like pluses in his column than minuses as far as, gameplay is concerned. He's someone, I must have redone my list like 50 times. I was changing so much. And there was a point where Frankie was on my list. I certainly, he just missed my list. And I certainly agree with every point that Brent made. The only reason that he's off my list is the only reason that I was probably the lowest on Derek of the four of us, if I remember right, which is third. That's not super low, but it's the Team America thing. Frankie had a little bit of assistance that other people playing this game didn't have. And this is such a subjective list. And I think the difference is so small between the people I had at the bottom making it versus not making it, that kind of stuck out to me as a reason why I put someone else over Frankie. But I don't think it's a legitimate not, if he were to come back and play, I think he'd do perfectly fine without Team America. And I don't think that's necessarily something you can hold against him, but just given the nature of the list we were making, given that we were only picking 15 and that I started with a list of 44, I just had to start splitting hairs at some point. You know what I mean? And ultimately that's kind of what dropped Frankie around 17 or 18, I think, for me. But no, Brent makes a lot of good points. And, yeah, he played a remarkable social game. He kind of made the moves he needed to make when he needed to make them. And it was, you could definitely argue Caleb making a mistake and kind of ruining his own game, taking out Frankie. So, yeah.
Oh, beast mode cowboy. Taran, you are of the mindset that competitions don't really matter in the game. So how do you feel about Frankie Grande as a strategist and tactically, if you will, as we talked about with the great Spencer Bledsoe on the last podcast we did together?
Tactically, actually, I don't think he was that great. Socially, though, I'm actually with Brent. I was shocked when I looked and I saw Frankie Grande, because I didn't think we would have to talk about him. But I actually agree. I think he probably should be an honorable mention. I think he's probably up there. I remember watching the beginning of season 16 on the feeds, and Frankie was everywhere. He was in everybody's ear. And it took a lot of work for Derek to undo what Frankie had done. The problem is, once Derek had undone it, Frankie then makes a bunch of mistakes, especially regarding Zach, because Zach really was his ride or die. Zach was totally devoted to Frankie, and Frankie wanted to out him the week Devin was HOH, and Derek had to undo that. And then again, Frankie just continually turned Zach back when he could have used him. and let Derek use him instead, really, which was, I thought, a huge mistake and one of the reasons why I don't have him on here. But apart from that, I think you put him in a situation where he's not against Derek, and maybe his social structure doesn't crumble in on him like it did. I don't think he's as close to winning as Brent you say he was. I think Caleb was always going to choose Derek over Frankie, and I think Cody could have beat Frankie, and I think even Caleb might have had a shot. Frankie wasn't too liked by the end, but he would have been respected. So I think he probably would have beat Caleb. I'm not sure about Cody though. It would have depended on how they got there. But he definitely had a shot, and I do think he was definitely screwed by that reset, because that was pretty unfair. So I'm not against him being on here. I'm not as high as him as Brent, as high on him as Brent is, but I definitely see why he's here.
All right, let's continue going around the horn. Let's throw this next one to Alex Kidwell. And Alex has somebody who I had in my top 15. This guy was in your top 15 as well, Alex, but he just narrowly missed the cut.
Yeah, he actually cracked my top 10. And I was surprised, because when I initially did my list, I thought he'd be on the list but lower. And then I just, I found myself struggling with that, group after the initial kind of 5 or 6 that I was so sure about, and the more kind of iterations of this list I did, the higher he crept. And it's Spencer Clausen from Big Brother 15. And, we're talking about like how important are comps and stuff. Obviously Spencer, by my picking Spencer, I'm saying that comps are not very important, because Spencer is not someone that's going to win a competition when it comes down to it. But Spencer is somebody that started the kind of alliance that dominated Big Brother 12 right off the bat in Big Brother 15. And when it blew up as a result of, you could argue that if they pick a follower like David Girton instead of McRae in week 1, that they might be able to make something of that. I mean, you could certainly make the argument. I don't know if I would, but I certainly think that, right, McRae chooses Amanda over the group of guys, and, Spencer's game is undone in week 2, and he's able to outlast everybody and make it to the final 3. I mean, he really showed a level of resilience after his whole game was undone, after all his cards are on the table. He was still able to navigate his way to the end, and he showed a lot of skills in doing so. I think he's a very underrated player. I think he's socially adaptable as much so as anyone in the game. I saw conversations, and I think part of it, 15 was the first season where I just like devoted my summer to watching feeds. And I just remember watching Spencer, having these like conversations where he's just relating on a country level with Judd. And then he's going in and having these like liberal progressive conversations with Andy and with Helen. And, he's just he can wear so many different masks, and he can just play so many different parts in order to get along with people and in order to make people see his point of view. And he's very persuasive, and he's very good at being subtly persuasive. He really is a master of language on levels that most people who go into the house aren't. And I believe he's somebody that when his back's against the wall, he's more likely to be able to find a way to save himself than almost anybody who's played this game and not won, because he really does have such a background of like, he's just got seemingly this wealth of life experience and kind of personal relationships that he brings to the table. And, to hear him talk, I mean, he really gets it. You know what I mean? He gets how people think. He gets how to incentivize them and make them see his point of view. And, the more, I go back and watch 15, I'm really impressed by how Spencer isn't, blown up when Nick and Jeremy are, isn't even blown up when Howard isn't even blown up when McRae and Amanda are. He manages to just weather storm after storm. And I think it's really, really impressive. And I think it's something that's very underrated because of the fact that, he kind of has like a, going out third the way he does, it's kind of unceremonious. But, I mean, if GM wins the, final HOH, I think Spencer could certainly convince her to take him, and then he probably wins. I think there's a lot of arguments to be made about how Spencer is able to just rise from the dead in this game from certain positions that I think other people would have just gone out the door.
Taran, what do you wish you would have seen, or what would you have need to have seen from Spencer's game in 15 for him to crack your top 15?
All right. Well, so I definitely agree that Spencer is underrated by a lot, because a lot of people saw him as just a seat warmer. He was just on the block all the time and he wasn't doing anything. That wasn't true. As Alex mentioned, he was very, very good at keeping himself alive in the game, and probably better than almost anyone I've seen at staying alive in the game. But my problem is that I never saw him convert that into anything where he turns it into a power position. As you mentioned in the beginning of the game, he was in the moving company, but what I saw from him in the moving company actually wasn't that promising. Granted, it was his first week in the game, but he tries to pin a vote on Candace, and it totally backfires. Nobody believes it. Candace figures out Spencer's trying to frame me. She then figures out the entire moving company. If McRae hadn't blown it up, it was probably already blown up anyway, and that was mainly due to Spencer's actions. And again, granted, that was his first week, so I give him a little leeway. He learned definitely as he went, and he did a really good job at staying alive, and I really think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But again, then toward the end of the game, he wasn't able to convert that into something where he was putting himself in a position where he could win the game. I don't think that Gina Marie would have taken. I think Gina Marie was taking Andy most of the time. I think that was pretty locked in from what I remember.
I think it was I think Gina Marie, we saw diary rooms of her saying like she knows she won't beat Andy if she takes him, but she wants to take him. So I think she was I think it was closer towards closer to at least to 50-50 than you're saying, Taran. But we'd have to ask Gina Marie about that one. But I was of the mindset of Alex that really Spencer was one Andy Herron final HOH loss away from essentially winning the game. Brent, is that how you saw it with Spencer, and why? What were your reasons for leaving him off of your list?
Well, I'm a little lost on what you guys are saying because I don't think in any universe Gina Marie is taking Spencer to the end, and even if she won that final HOH, I don't think that she's then going to, or he's going to be able to convince her in the time frame that they had. Here's the thing. I don't understand how you guys can say, and I didn't have him on my list at all. In fact, he wasn't close. I don't understand how you guys can say that staying alive in the game is currency in the game. Explain to me how staying alive in the game, in Spencer's case, ever converted itself into currency in the game that he could use to alter the contours of the game being played. It just seemed like he was a chess being moved around the board by other people. Seriously. That's how I viewed him.
Well, I think... Yeah, and I'll let Alex defend this, but I think
I would like to finish
Alex,
my point.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
I do think there is an element of us, and you guys can dismiss it if you want, that are being impacted by the fact that Spencer has become such a mainstay in the overall Big Brother community, and he seems much more respectable now because we listen to him on his own podcast. At least I do, and I'm like, where was this guy in 15? Because I sure as hell didn't see him. So I mean, like I said, he's not close, and I don't begrudge Alex because we have a lot of variance in our, especially in our bottom 5 of our rankings of the top 15. But say lovey.
I mean, you can speak for yourself, but certainly my opinion is not altered by Spencer's podcast after the fact. That is not true for me. So
I will also say I was actually a lot higher on Spencer during the season than most people were. I was defending him. From what at the time I had no platform to. But I
mean, my argument is that the control that you were looking to see from him was yanked out of his hands in week 2 when his entire scheme was blown up. That is a circumstance that every other Big Brother player has done in a week or 2. They're going home. Spencer outlasts from week 2 to final 3. Having no currency left him. They took away all his money. They robbed him in week 2, and he managed to beg his way to the final. Give him currency in the game, and I'm scared to see what he's able to do, because he was able to do all that with nothing.
But again, like
also too. Yeah, sorry, go Brent.
I just feel like what he had in the game was being completely abysmal at competitions, completely unlikable in the eyes of some people, but they never saw him as a threat to win the game. And every time he was on the block, they're like, I'm going to vote out this guy? Really? Like, let's keep him around a little while longer,
See, I think it was a lot more than that. I think he was very well liked by the vast majority. I mean, including Helen was like sobbing when he came clean to him, and he was able to get Helen to forgive him. Not only that, but then when he was on the block, people talked about like, well, I don't want to get rid of Spencer, in part because he's no good, but in part because they liked Spencer. And then on top of that, like, he's just somebody that I don't know. Go ahead.
It's okay. I think all I'm saying is there's a difference between being liked, which he was, and being a threat to to win the game in the eyes of the people playing the game, which I don't think he was. I don't think anybody in that house saw Spencer as a threat to win the game, and that's why they were not intimidated to take him further into the game. I think his moving ahead in the game was just of other people's choosing. It was on the whims of other people. So how can I put that person in my top 15 of best players to never win? Bitch, please.
I mean,
Sorry,
but he was having daily conversations convincing those people to think of him in that way. It wasn't like they were just like, they just crafted this narrative of Spencer in their heads. Like, he was very, very active in maintaining his role as the pawn of the house, in a role where everybody else panics. He was the guy that was just totally cool being a 7-time pawn. I mean, even Johnny Mac started to get bothered at a point, and Johnny Mac doesn't get bothered by anything. But Spencer never once complained about being the pawn. He just ate the role. And that's something that, like, is, it looks like nothing from the outsider's perspective, but God, in the house, like, we always hear from people like, it's so scary to be on the block. I can't trust anybody. Like, he was just able to be cool and just, you know what I mean? And I think that's like a really underrated thing because it's not overt. It's not flashy, but it's powerful. You know what I mean? At least that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle here, where I definitely think that Spencer was and I saw it. He was very active, and he was very good at maintaining the image of the pawn, the image of somebody that can't win, and he was very active in creating that image. At the same time, though, again, I don't think he was able to convert that into a power position, into a position where he was able to get himself in a winning position. He made good relationships to keep himself safe, but he wasn't able to make relationships enough to start making moves with those relationships. And that's where Andy kind of outflanked him. So that's my issue with this game.
I think if Andy wasn't around, I think it could have been a different story for him. I mean, and also too, I gotta give credit. This guy survived. He at the time had the record for most nominations in a season 9. I mean, that's pretty impressive. As somebody who's been on the block as a quote unquote pawn, it's not easy doing that and surviving every single time. And Spencer put that work in, building those relationships, and I think you got to give him credit for that. Also, too, I mean, the Exterminators. Spencer was integral in that alliance. And also, I mean, maybe not as much as Andy, but yes, Spencer was. And just Spencer being open to, working with McRae after McRae completely screwed him over, at least at the beginning of the game with the whole moving company thing. So I think that I'm more so in the mindset of Alex. I had Spencer higher up in my rankings. Well, I had Spencer on my list compared to you, Taran, and to you, Brent. So I think I'm more so with Alex on that one. But we can move on to this next one, who I had this is my honorable mention, and she was not on anyone's list, so I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I am a big fan of this person. So, and again, very subjective ranking. Well, actually, first off, also, I want to give a shout out to my buddy McRae Olson. I think McRae is great as well, but I have to pick one. So I'm going with this other person. Sorry, McRae. I love you very much. And I think that McRae, I think McRae is a lot better of a Big Brother player than people give him credit for, but another podcast for another day. My person is well known from Big Brother 8 and Big Brother 13. It is she finished in second on Big Brother 8, and well, she didn't really do as well on Big Brother 13. And that is my girl Danielle Donato. So Danny Donato is my honorable mention here. 8th place in Big Brother 13. Competition beast the first time she plays at 20 years old. Very young the first time she's playing. Her alliance with her dad is obviously a big thing. Evil Dick clearly seen as the mastermind of that alliance, if you will. But Danielle was still very good socially. She picked up on a lot of things. She picked up that Eric Stein being the one who was throwing the hinky votes out every week and was the one behind, getting rid of planting them on Nick and that whole kind of thing. So, Big Brother 13, she's the one who rallies all of the newbies together to go against the veterans. And really, if Adam Pock, and I love Adam Pock, but bless Adam Pock's heart, but if he would have had some balls, I can't put it any other way. If he had some balls, and if he votes with the newbies, I believe that was in week 7 when she went home. Danielle's still in the game, and Danielle's got a whole army around her that could potentially carry her to the end and could help her win the game. So I don't know, maybe I'm going way out on a limb on this one, but I feel like Danielle Donato deserves at least some mention on this podcast just because of what she's done and just just because of her legacy in Big Brother history, and she's a big part of it. Now let's throw it to Brent's making a big face. So Brent, tell me why I'm crazy.
Oh, well, at least I know how to get attention on this podcast is just to make another face. So Taran, Alex, that's how you do it. Right? Thank you. I love you, JP. Here's the thing. I would have put Danny Donato on my list before the second time she played. And what I saw the second time she played was a bulldozer in a game that looks more like a China shop. She has it's amazing to me. She has a path in front of her. Here's the path to getting to the end and going to the end with a bunch of unlikable people because your partner's gone. Your partner's home. There's two pairs that are in the game, veterans. You can go with these people, and you can definitely get to the end and make a play to win the game. But no, she says, I don't want to be with those people. I want to go with my friends over here. So my mind is blown. She just willingly threw away her chance to win the game and $500,000 because she wanted to go sit with these people instead of these people. And it just burns me up that she has, very few people come into Big Brother and have such a golden path laid out in front of them. And she just took it and threw it away. And you know what? When Dick called her on it at the reunion, she shook her head. Yes, that's exactly what I did. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I still threw it away. I don't even understand how you, after seeing that abysmal gameplay, you can ever consider her one of the best people to never win.
But first off, the fact that she can recognize her mistakes and has self-awareness, I think we got to give her credit for that because that's
help if she still makes the wrong decision.
She would still do it, JP. She would still do it.
Yeah, but I don't know. We put her in a random season. I mean, you throw her out there. I think Danielle's got the chops. I think she can do it. And also, too, I mean, with a lot of these people, that are big competition beasts and people are afraid of, they go after people. They're scared of them. They're intimidated by them. Your James Ryans of the world, Frank Udy, those types of people, right? But with Danielle, she was really good in competitions. And nobody really was that because she was so small. Nobody really took her seriously in that regard. So I think that's something else that works for her game as well. Big Brother 8. She's never nominated directly because of all of her competition wins. She's nominated because she takes a shot at Eric, and then the next week Jessica wins HOH and decides to put her up out of spite of that. So I don't know. I'm a big Danny Donato fan. Taran, Alex, anything else to add as to why I'm wrong? Because Brent did bring up a valid point. 13 did not go the way it should have. But I mean, if she had a couple other bounces go her way, you never know.
Well, I think you mentioning her shot at Eric, that's the other thing that really bothers me about her game is that was a really terrible shot. Like, and to be fair, some of it can be credited to Dick, and maybe it's the kind of thing where it's like a Wentworth thing where her dad was in the way of her game and kind of messing it up. But like, she first of all, there was a banner plane telling her that Eric had betrayed her, basically. Like, it's not like she like intuited it out on her own. And he even almost got away with it after the banner plane. Like, it took a lot to convince people that Eric had been the liar. But then when she makes her shot at Eric, it's very rare. And I'll mention this a couple times throughout this podcast. It's very rare for somebody to be nominated as a backdoor target and for them to survive, because usually you'd never make that move unless you're 100% sure that the shot will hit. And she made that move and the shot did not hit. It was never going to hit. They never had the numbers, and they were fooled by Jessica. Like, they were fooled by these people who were always going to keep Eric, and all they did was turn themselves into enemy number one in the house. They were previously with all these people and they alienated all of them. So it wasn't a very good move. And in a normal season, it would have resulted in Dick leaving the next week and, Danny probably following soon after. And then again, as Brent mentioned, in season 13, she was pretty much eliminated at the very first opportunity, right? Like at the very first time she was vulnerable. So there's not much, and I'm annoyed that you're bringing up Denny, and I'm annoyed that Alex brought up Spencer, because I like these people a lot, and I don't want to have to say bad things about their game. She was like the ray of hope in season 13. Like she was the chosen one to deliver the season from the evil that it was, and unfortunately she failed. But it also wasn't a good move. So those are my thoughts on it. I do think I think she has the potential to be a good player. I do think she has some good qualities to her, just not quite there to be in the top for me.
Alex, any final thoughts on Danielle Donato?
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot of good points. Like obviously, Jordan, you know that I did an initial list when I was just on vacation that was just kind of off the top of my head and sent it your way. And Danny was on that list. And then when I came back and watched some stuff, I ultimately dropped her off. And, not by a large margin or anything, but yeah, and I think Brent, all the examples that he brings up of kind of weaknesses in her game are, in many cases, examples of just immaturity. I mean, she was very young both times when she played. And while that's not, necessarily a knock on her, you can't then say like by default that she would be better now with it. You'd have to like see it. You know what I mean? So like Taran said, I definitely believe she could come back and play a great game. I think she, like in 13, I think she just got impatient and bored and just, kind of fed up with the status quo, the way things were going. And I think maybe an older, more mature Danny would be able to just kind of sit back and bide her time a little better. And also it didn't help her, obviously, that she met her future husband there and wanted to, flip the game for him. Obviously, that's a wrench that you can't really account for.
And they're also incredibly adorable.
Oh, God.
Danny and Dominic, yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, I perhaps if she were to play again without her husband or any emotional attachments there or anything like that, I'm of the mindset that she would do much better. But that's just me. Who knows? Perhaps I'm crazy, but figured she deserved at least some mention on this podcast. Let's move on, though, to the actual definitive rank that we came up with, at least the RHAPpy, Reality TV RHAP-ups definitive ranking of the best Big Brother players to never win the game, the top 12. So we're going to start. We've got the honorable mentions out of the way. We are going to start with number 12. And this person really, if I'm just looking at it, he got one more point than Spencer Clausen. So really, he just by a hair edged out Spencer to make it onto this top 12 list. He is somebody who is part of a well-known alliance. They were very dominant in their season. It's from Big Brother 12. They call him the Meow Meow. It's Enzo Palumbo. So Enzo is your number 12 on the list of best non-winning Big Brother players. Taran, you had Enzo at number 11 on your list. Brent, you did as well. I did not have Enzo rated at all. And Alex, you had him at number 13. So Taran, let's start with you. Why Enzo in the position that you had him?
Basically, you have to give a fair amount of credit to Enzo for what happened with the Brigade. And the Brigade was one of the most dominant alliances and series of strategic decisions that we've seen in the game. I think he's this low for me because I think that without Matt and without Hayden, I think he's going to have a lot more trouble. He was somebody that was never able to find like one person that was really close to him. Ultimately, that almost worked in his favor. But as a whole, I think he was good at maintaining what was set in place for him. And I think he's the kind of player that can adapt to a different situation. So he's very likable. He's very social. And he has that drive to be strategic, not to the extent that he's going to ruin his game by being too devious, but to the extent that just the right amount where he wants to be, kind of like deceitful, but not too much. And so I think in a general game, he's never going to be a driving force or anything, but he's always going to have a good chance to run deep and then maybe get lucky. And if he makes it to the end, he's probably winning.
Alex, how do you feel about Enzo at number 12 on this list?
I think it's about right. I mean, I had him, I think, yeah, like you said, 13. So I think that's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. I think he definitely belongs on the list because in the grand scheme of Big Brother, we haven't seen many people who really get the social experiment side of it the way Enzo does. I mean, he certainly knew how to talk to people and knew how to kind of maintain the illusion of the brigade throughout an entire summer, which was no small task. I mean, to kind of keep your story straight and keep telling people all the correct things and never let it blow up as, and I mean, obviously Matt was instrumental in spearheading the alliance, but Matt was gone halfway through the season and they still had, I mean, granted, you can argue that Kathy is not the hardest person to fool, but they had, people that they really did need to kind of keep the spell over until they got to a point where it was safe to just kind of laugh about it in Brittany's face, which is what he enjoyed doing. But, I mean, I think that moment was pretty telling. Like that was Enzo, like releasing all his, buildup of like keeping the charade going all season. And I think it was impressive that he was able to do that. The reason that he is as low as he is for me is I think, Taran touched on it a little bit. I just don't know how he does without the perfect storm of players. I think he needs the fraternity guys in there to rally up to form a bros situation, because I've never really seen, like you mentioned, I mean, everyone's job in the brigade was to go out and grab another. And, I mean, Matt was able to go out and start up a showmance with Reagan in order to grab another. Matt showed some serious versatility. Enzo, didn't really vibe with anyone else. So he was like, yeah, I mean, a 7's a majority anyway. I don't need to grab somebody. I'm fine. You know what I mean? So there is that element of Enzo that makes me wonder if he ever got in a house with dumb guys and smart women, or guys that weren't looking for the bromance situation. I just feel like he wouldn't know what card to play and he might be out quickly.
Any final thoughts on Enzo, Brent?
Well, look, it's so funny because so many people on this list I hated at the time that they were playing, and Enzo is definitely one of them, because you never are rooting for the person who's in the position of power. I wanted to see Enzo just eat it big, because I was not a fan of his, and he was so cocky and he felt like he had the game wrapped up, and he basically did, to get to the final three at least. Socially, I really liked what I saw from him on a rewatch, and it's no small task keeping a secret the entire summer. So you're stuck in a, it's easy for us on the outside. We're like, just don't tell him. You're stuck in a house with these people who are all conspiring to get you out. You get mad at people on different days. You want to tell somebody, hey, when you have a weak moment, hey, it's just human nature. You have something that nobody else knows. You want to tell them, And so few times in Big Brother, we see where people are able to keep that secret all the way through. He was, and he got himself to the end. I will say that I agree with everyone else on this panel that without the perfect storm, more specifically of Brendan and Rachel, I think that was the perfect shield for his band of an alliance, because everybody the whole season was after Brendan and Rachel, and you couldn't even get them out until they were down to final 8, final 7, so to get them both out, and by then they had the game wrapped up. So if things go a little different, and the other thing that made me want to put him on my list is he wanted it. As much as I disliked Enzo at the time that I saw him, when he was evicted, you could see the pain on his face. He absolutely, positively wanted to win this game. I think he's itching to come back for a second time, and I'd like to see what he does. I would love to see what he does in a house with some strong women who he won't be able to do this bro down alliance with, and see how he plays with them, because I think he would do very well.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to add on top of that, that I was thinking of when Alex was talking about how even after Matt gets evicted, the brigade still kind of goes on and operates just as well as it had been. I think Enzo is the primary cause, at least the biggest contributor of the atmosphere in the house of Big Brother 12, which was this very laid back summer camp atmosphere. I think he was the one that really spearheaded that, and that was one of the biggest reasons why the brigade was never found out, because nobody was thinking in those terms, and he was really pushing that.
All right, let's move on from the meow meow. He came in at number 12, and fitting. Big Brother 12 finishes in 12th place. That's interesting. I just realized that. Number 11 on this list is a two-time player, somebody who is from the earlier seasons of Big Brother, really, which it's crazy to think that this is coming up in Big Brother 18. So soon, like Big Brother 9 is like the first half of Big Brother, which is crazy. But she was from Big Brother 5 and Big Brother 7. She was a big part of Big Brother 5 and was really, was the person who was responsible for taking down the Four Horsemen. And that is Diane Henry. So Diane Henry comes in at number 11. She was ranked at number 11 on my list and Alex's list, number 12 on Taran's list, and was not rated on Brent's list. So, Taran, why don't you tell us a little bit about Diane Henry?
Well, let's see. I think Diane is a very interesting character because she was never somebody that was like puppet mastering. She was very emotional throughout the season. It like for the most part, it seemed like her goal wasn't really matched up with the goal that you should have in Big Brother. A lot of it was kind of just how can I protect my relationship for the time being. And it really worked out well for her because she ended up playing both sides pretty well. I also think she should be higher than somebody else on this list that was maybe in a similar position because she totally outplayed that person. But that's beside the point.
We'll get to that.
I just think in general, she doesn't come off as very threatening. She does seem emotional, but that never hindered her game in a way that really made her in a vulnerable position. Ultimately, she gets betrayed by I totally lost his name. Drew.
Drew. There you go. Yes, Drew Daniel.
But yeah, so I mean, ultimately I think basically her failure in the game came from the fact that her motivation wasn't as pure as it should have been. And had it been, had she been more focused on the game, I think she probably would have won that season. Ultimately, she believes Drew is into her, and Drew is he's not that into her. So she really got wrapped up in that, and I think that's my biggest fault on her game for sure. But the way she was definitely one of the better players of that season. So I think she's rated pretty much where she should be. I think season 7, she never really had a chance. None of her allies got HOH, and she was put in a position where, there were already set alliances. So I don't fault her for what happened there. She actually didn't do a terrible job. She had that secret alliance with Jace probably. And when she was eventually evicted, she threw this pity party for herself that seemed kind of like sad for her, but might have worked, So I don't know. I think she's good. I don't have the most concrete thoughts about her, but I think she deserves to be on here somewhere.
Alex, did you fault Diane at all for her showing in Big Brother All-Stars or no?
I try to factor it in, and I think it ends up maybe knocking her a little bit, but I don't know ultimately, because I thought she showed some things, at least in her, preparation of All-Stars with, the awareness to try to make a preseason alliance with Jace, with the whole Mr. and Mrs. Smith alliance, and the awareness to keep it so much under wraps that they're even being kind of coy about it after the season's over to a degree. Like I thought that showed a level of growth from her game in season 5. So to that degree, I almost liked seeing that. Obviously I don't know how much I fault her for her own eviction in All-Stars, because a lot of it is based on preceding reputation, but then also she kind of didn't do herself any favors by not protecting some of the people from her season who go out before her early. I think she's somebody that, like Taran said, she was never really like the strategist on either of her seasons, but she has a lot of really good natural instincts for this game, both in terms of relating to people. I mean, she was able to connect with, at times, even though she fought with them, I mean, she got along with the, Jace and Scott and was able to talk to them on kind of like a dude level. She was able to hang out with Marvin, and they had like an interesting relationship that Marvin later tried to exploit. But he wasn't able to do that if she hadn't, been able to relate to him on that level. She's someone that's able to connect with people very well and very naturally, I think. And then she was able to be someone who can use those relationships and leverage them at the right time to get the vote to go the way she wanted. And I think that's something that's, huge in the game, and not everyone has that gift. I certainly think she benefits from kind of having an early game relationship with Nokomis, who is on the outs and really gets the strategy of the game, and they're able to kind of help each other in that. Diane's able to kind of help integrate her into the group from a social standpoint, and Nokomis is able to like help teach Diane kind of some strategic nuance. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately she's just hard to rate because it's hard to really say, like how much of her game is, just kind of luck in kind of the scenario she found herself in, being in a relationship at the time with the person who goes on to win the season and being friends with someone who comes up with, a plan that we now consider a staple of the game. You know what I mean? So it's hard to know how much to really give credit to Diane and how much to put it on the people that were around her when these things happened. And I think that's why Diane ends up being kind of all over the place for some of us.
Brent, final thoughts on Diane, and just if you could explain why you decided not to include her in your top 15.
Well, something said that Taran said something that really struck me, and I couldn't enunciate it correctly, but it's true. She really, I felt like during Big Brother 5, was interested in cultivating her relationships rather than cultivating a winning strategy, and that is one of the reasons why I didn't put her on my list, although I couldn't put those thoughts together in my own head. I will say this, that her showmance didn't work, I think in part because she fell in love with a gay guy. But I'll just put that out there, just let you guys know. I mean, it's like, seriously, like that's what happened. He wasn't that into her. There's a reason for that. But anyways, but beyond that, I will say that her experience in Big Brother All-Stars really did rub me the wrong way. And the reason I say that is because of this. She had one in the game. It was her alliance with Jace. That's what I really felt like. That was her one play in the game. People didn't know about it for sure. And Jace gets head of household with Janelle week 1. And this is going to be my only chance to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about it now and we'll never talk about it again. Like, seriously, it was their fault that the season went the way it did. Because seriously, all Jace had to do was say, I don't want to. Allison isn't coming after me. Why the hell am I? There's 4 Big Brother 6 people in here. Why am I going to let all of them stay? All we have to do is go to Janelle and say, look, I want to put up Kaser and Howie. If you don't go along with it, we're going on the block. That's all he had to do. She wouldn't have done it. Janelle would not have done it. And Kaser and Howie would have been forced because that was the season where they started off with double HOH. And if you couldn't agree on the nominations, then you both had to go on the block. Seriously, Janelle would not have put herself on the block to save Kaser and Howie. She would have remained safe. Kaser and Howie would have been nominated, and the entire season looks different. And Diane and Jace both have a chance to win. Instead, they played it safe. They did the bidding of other people, and they paid the price for that. So that's why I can't put them on my list.
To be fair, though, it's hard to predict that the next 4 HOHs are going to go to the same opposing alliance. Like, if that doesn't happen, they have a much better shot, and maybe it's a good thing that they played it so safe.
I don't give much credit for playing it safe.
I can completely understand why they don't want to come out of the gates gunning that hard. Like, if you're making threats right off the bat, like, it's going to be hard to last an entire season. So I do think
to make a threat. I think all he needs to do is go to Janelle and say, she said, who do you want to put up? I'll say, I'd really like to put up Kaser and Howie. Well, I'm not so into that. Well,
because then they're number one target.
Yeah, and then Danielle was really aggressive with that, and then in turn Danielle goes up. But Danielle had the right idea. Danielle had the right idea, but I think as somebody who has volunteered to go on the block, it's not an easy thing to do. Most rational, sane people do not want to do that. So I can see why Jace would not want to do that, especially being the huge threat that he was competition-wise at that point. And I don't know if I'm buying what you're selling that Janelle would agree to put up Kaser and Howie in that situation.
If she doesn't, she's nominated. You're telling me that Janelle would say, no, I want to save Kaser and Howie.
But Brent,
my own ass.
It's about who blinks first, though. If she just doesn't blink, and will.
But also, too, I feel like it would come toward, it wouldn't be just straight up, okay, Jace is like, all right, I'm taking the reins. It's Kaser and Howie. She would at least compromise. She'd be like, okay, you can have one, and I'll have one.
No compromise.
You know what I mean? Nope. Yeah, I don't see that. I'm not buying that. I don't think that's happening. I really don't. I think, but again, we'll save that.
Okay.
Brent, we'll save that for we'll save
A
that
twist?
for the evolution of strategy for Big Brother All Stars.
Let's do a twist podcast.
Okay. Or maybe a twist podcast. There we go.
Right.
But you know what? Let's move on to number 10 on this list. And number 10 on this list is also somebody who played this game twice. Now, this person had I think with this list, had the highest variance of anybody in terms of rankings. So Brent had this person at number 3. I had this person at number 13. Taran and Alex did not have this person ranked at all. But on the strength of me and Brent putting her in the ranks, she has made the list. So actually, no, I've screwed up. She did not play this game twice. She played this game 3 times. I try not to remember that third time because it didn't really go so great. From Big Brother 6, Big Brother 7, and Big Brother 14, it's Janelle Perzina. So Janelle is in at number 10. And Brent, explain why you had Janelle at 3rd overall on your list.
Well, this is going to come down to a difference of vision about what we're talking about, okay? I guarantee you that Taran and Alex both will say, to an extent, and I don't know how firmly they believe this, that the comp wins don't matter. It's really about the strategy of the game. It's about the underlying social dynamics, where the relationships you form with other people, and I agree with all of that. However, it's called Big Brother. It's not called Dr. Will. I didn't invent that. Someone else said it in the chat room earlier.
That's a shout out to the BB president for saying that.
Thank you, BB president. I love that. That was the perfect encapsulation of what I was trying to say, because you just can't get this bitch out. I mean, seriously, Big Brother 6, Big Brother 7, she was just phenomenal. I mean, it wasn't even a question who was going to win some of these comps at one point. I mean, you just knew it was going to be Janelle. It's going to be Janelle. Here she wins again. So I think that, I know Taran in the past has called them carnival-esque games. I don't think that that's completely a proper connotation of it, mainly because you see many of the same people win all of these games. There are certain things that come up a lot in Big Brother, and she knew to study for those games. The famous Jedi drilling that came out of that season. Look, here's the thing. She ended up 3rd place and 3rd place in 2 incredible seasons. And if one tiebreaker goes the other way, she ends up winning. For the life of me, I was aghast. I was flummoxed when I saw that 2 of you didn't even have her on your list at all. I really don't know how you can say that she is not one of the best people to never win Big Brother. She got so close twice, played so well throughout both of those games, only to come up short at the finish line. It was so depressing. And I'm not even that big of a Janelle fan, because I was definitely rooting for her to be evicted early on, and I wanted Danielle Reyes to be the one to do it. But looking back on it, it's like, I can't believe she didn't win one of those seasons. She really should have. She played so well. The comp wins were just an element of it. But beyond that, she had people around her who would ride or die with her on both seasons. And she makes the move at the end to get rid of Dr. Will, obviously iconic. And I give her a huge amount of praise for that, considering the hoodwinking that Dr. Will had done on her up until that point. Taran, what do you give me that look for?
That was a terrible move.
Well, okay. I still think that in any respect, Janelle has to be on any list of best people to never win this game. I can't believe she hasn't done it. And, if you're looking at 14, whatever. Seriously, I mean, she was a coach. I'm not even sure. She had a kid at that point. She wasn't even. I didn't think her head was in the game at that point. She didn't seem like.
Hey, Danielle Reyes had kids, huh? Look at
she hit the button, Brent. If she didn't want to play, why'd she hit the button?
I don't know. Like I said, I didn't. It wasn't the Janelle I remember. I'll say that. So look, let me say one thing real quick, and I'll shut up. I'm looking at each of these people. I'm trying to see their best aspects, and Janelle has some great aspects. I also, just so you guys know, spoiler alert, I had Jesse Goddard's on my list. Okay, I had him at number 15 on my list. I had Jesse freaking Mr. Spectacular on my list. And the reason I had him on my list is because I saw some great stuff from him in his 2nd season. So Janelle, I saw lots of great stuff in both of her first 2 seasons. I'm not even going to talk about what happened the 3rd time. The floor is yours, Taran.
No, she came close. She was probably I think she was around my top 20.
Okay.
Because I think she's one of the better players to do competitions. And I think competitions for the most part don't matter, but they can. And we saw that with Steve, and we've seen that with Janelle and some other players as well. Competitions can matter. You just have to get lucky with them. So it definitely is a big benefit to you if you're very good at them. That said, season 14, she made zero connections. She had people she was coaching, and they wanted her out. Like, they weren't even on her side. She had almost no allies. She almost convinced Dan to keep her, but ultimately wasn't able to. She couldn't play ball with Boogie, and Boogie was able to outplay her for Dan's attention, basically. The move to evict Will, while certainly iconic and fantastic television, maybe, and Survivor Tyler pointing out, it was Erica's move. Erica was the one that outdid the Will and Boogie thing to Janelle, and it was some consensus, yes, but Erica is the one that kind of put it together, and it benefited Erica a lot more than it benefited Janelle, because if Janelle keeps Will there and takes out Erica instead, Erica is much easier or much more difficult to beat in the final 3 HOH. Will hasn't won a single thing in his entire 2 stays, and sure, he throws things, but even when he's tried to win, he's still failed. I think she has a much better shot at beating Will and Boogie than she does Boogie and Erica, neither of which are going to take her to the final 2. So when all she needs to do is win that and take Boogie, I think it's a huge mistake to take out Will there. I think genuinely, if she doesn't take out Will, she wins the game, because she wins that endurance competition. Probably that was a freak accident that she took her hand off anyway. You don't think Janelle can beat Boogie and Will in an endurance comp?
Well, I have problems with that endurance competition, because although Erica asked a question about the fact that do we have to hold on with both of our hands onto the key, Janelle was on the other side of that contraption, and Julie never said it. So the fact that they penalized Janelle for taking one hand off the key rather than both her hands off the key is always a problem to me. It's a stain on that season, because of the fact that Julie never said the rules. Erica asked a question, but Janelle couldn't hear her on the other side. So, but whatever. That's not even what we're here to talk about. Yeah. I still think it would have worked out the same way.
I just think that she's a very polarizing player, and she's the kind of person where you love her or you hate her. She needs to get to a season where there are people that love her or think she's useful to them. That didn't happen in season 14, and she makes tactical errors, so ultimately didn't make my top 15.
Alex, if there was no such thing as Big Brother 14, would Janelle have made your list?
I don't think so. And it comes down to 3 words. Bye-bye, bitches. To me, Janelle is the story of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. She wins a competition because she has to, and then she alienates everybody in her celebrating, or something just like it. You know what I mean? Janelle is constantly doing a thing great, and then doing 2 things to undermine everything that thing was, because she just can't help herself. She's emotional, and she's a little spiteful, and she's great, and she kind of knows it. And that's all great television, man. She's awesome TV. I will never knock her for that. But I think there's absolutely a reason she's played 3 times and not 1. I think it comes down to the fact that if she's not quite so hostile in 6, are they targeting her as early? You know what I mean? If she's in 7, she's used as a glorified super pawn. I mean, she's just directed at targets, and she takes them out for them. I think there's a lot to like in terms of what she does, especially from an entertainment standpoint. But she wasn't really in the conversation for me for this list, just because I don't think she's up there in terms of the number of players that you would send back to a random season and expect to win, because I just don't think she can keep it contained when she does something so well. And I get that. You know what I mean? There are people who just are like that. I'm like that at times, for sure. If you do something great, you want to celebrate. But in the Big Brother house, you just can't parade yourself around people like you're better than them. And I just think she doesn't know how not to be Janelle, and that's not her fault, but it is something that's going to make it hard for her to win this game.
I will say,
and I don't even.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brent.
Go ahead, JP. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. You haven't talked about.
Okay,
it yet.
let me just say something, and you can close it out. Just to build off that, one quick point is, and I don't even know if it's necessarily the overzealous celebrations after winning competitions, because we've seen that from Mike Boogie, we've seen that from other people. I also think too that Janelle is just kind of cold as a person, and if she doesn't like you, she's not going to fake it or anything like that. Big Brother's a social game, and if you're not social with everybody, you're going to lose points in my book. I put her on my list because I felt that she was just so dominant in competitions that I had to mention her. She was so good. She was transcended, arguably the best ever when it comes to that. But the reason she wasn't higher for me was just, 13. I mean, as soon as she lost that ability to win competitions, she goes home right away, as soon as she is vulnerable. But Brent, you had let's throw it to you one last thing, and then we'll move on to number 9 on the list.
Well, I have a problem with saying that it was Erica's move, number one, because you could tell immediately when Janelle won that competition that she was already thinking. Like, I mean, Erica says, "I know you're going to evict me," and Janelle says, "Well, maybe not. Let's talk about it." You can tell she's already thinking in her own head, it may not be such a good idea to go to the end with a lock solid final 2. And I also think that, it's splitting hairs, at this point, I mean, you're going to tell me that it was better for her to take a rock solid alliance, a final 2 to the end, rather than 2 people who weren't necessarily together. I mean, I just think that she was in a tough spot. She realized what the jig was a little bit too late. She realized she had been used, and she tried to rectify that as best she could. Ultimately, it didn't work out for her, but I think to put together a list where you're talking about, the best people to have never won this game, she really should have. As she played phenomenally dominant games both times in 6 and 7, didn't win, and I really think you guys are selling her a bit short here, and it sort of bums me out, because I really do feel like that it's rare that you see someone who is that assertive and that dominant as a female player, and I loved watching her. I don't think we saw it again until Vanessa, and it was just such rich television and such amazingly hypnotic gameplay. Like, I couldn't turn away from Big Brother 6 or 7, and a huge part of that was because of Janelle. So I also don't think that you can separate necessarily gameplay and TV as much as you think you can. I feel like that they are at least, if not a symbiotic relationship, I think they're at least tangentially related. And I love seeing what I saw from Janelle. But I understand why people on this list, on this panel don't even have her on their top 15. Sort of.
My top 20.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's go to number 9.
Alex made 44 and she wasn't there apparently, so I don't know.
Was she not in your top 44?
For me.
She may not have been in the 44.
Oh, wow.
But it was because I knew that she wasn't going to be in the 15. So, you know what I mean? There was a couple people that I was like, like Hardy was never going to make the list, but I figured I wanted another look at him. You know what I mean? Come on.
I wanted
it's
a
little
look at Hardy
when I say 44. Oh, who doesn't want to look at Hardy? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Number 9 on the list. Okay. So this person, we're going with a lot of people who have played multiple times. And maybe that's why they're in the lower half of this top 12, but
more information.
More information perhaps. Number 9 on the list, played twice, played also on Big Brother 5 and Big Brother 7, just like Diane Henry. She is credited with creating she was the mastermind behind the 6-finger plan, which is now known as the common strategy, the back door, if you will, that is seen time and time again every season on Big Brother. She was a bit of an outsider the first time she played, but she managed to get all the way to 4th place, did a really good job. Big Brother All-Stars came in 13th, so went out week 2. Wasn't the same story. So a little bit different. I was the highest on this person, and I will admit a lot of this was because of just nostalgia and the whole invention of the back door. I probably, in hindsight, was maybe a little too high with her, but I'll stick with her. I had her at number 7, Alex had her at 9, Brent had her at 13, and Taran did not have her rated at all on his list. And that is Jennifer Nokomis Deadman. So Nokomis comes in at number 9. Alex, tell us a little bit about Nokomis.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Jordan, in that, in hindsight, it's possible I have her a little higher than maybe I should in, relative to how I ranked everybody else here. I do definitely, you called it the nostalgia factor. I think she really did contribute a vital piece to this game. You know what I mean? I think, and certainly, people have made the argument that she discussed it with Marvin. Like, it wasn't 100% her idea, but from what I remember, it was her that really kind of formulated it and brought it to the table for them to kind of execute. And I mean, for me, it's just gone from being a nuance that was unthought of and something that just befuddled Jace, which was great to see, to being such an iconic part of every week Big Brother. And to me, that alone is enough to, I mean, she really did revolutionize the game. You know what I mean? Like, they had introduced the veto and, people were trying to figure out how to use that. And then they made it the golden veto and people were trying to figure out how's this different now that it's not punishing me to use it on someone else, or it's not leaving me vulnerable to do so. And, it really was kind of just a really eye-opening moment when you realize, like, oh my, not just for Jace and for them in the house, but when you're watching it on TV, like, there's nothing Jace can do. His game is played out. There's no way out. You know what I mean? Like, it really was a next level moment, at least for me watching it, where I really saw, okay, this is what this can be. This is what this show can be. You really can minimize someone's options while maximizing your own. And I mean, for me, it really is just hard for me in my head to separate Nokomis from the advent of the plan and what ultimately became the backdoor.
Right. And there's people in the chat saying that actually it was Mike Lubinski who came up with the six-finger plan. I personally was not watching the feeds then, but we're going to go with this, with the show being canon. With Nicole, we're going to give Nokomis the credit for this. But she's the one who kind of implemented and introduced it. So whatever. History is written by the winners anweay. So we're Mike Levinsky out first. We're not giving him credit. It's going to Nokomis. Taran, you didn't have Nokomis on your list. Why was that? Was it because of Big Brother All-Stars? Was it something else? Is it because she's an outsider? Give us your reasons.
Well, here's the thing about the six-finger plan. It was the first season that the six-finger plan could have been implemented. It was the first season where you picked people to play in the veto. And there's another season in Survivor where there was a new concept that was introduced. And it was the first opportunity that somebody could have had to, kind of negate this advantage. And the person that came up with this plan was Cowboy. Plan Voodoo, to split the votes against an immunity idol. I don't think that we laud Cowboy as being a great strategic mind.
And hold on, time out. We're talking about
yourself.
We're talking about Cowboy from
Yes.
Survivor Cook Islands, the Asian cowboy, maybe the Survivor cowboy, not the cowboy Michael Ellis from Big Brother 5.
Hey man, he had a dream. All right, Taran, he had a dream.
The thing is, a plan like the six-finger plan, it's just numbers. All you need to do is stop and think about it. And I think anybody could have come up with that plan, and I think it would have been thought of at some point in the future. Like, she just happened to be the person that thought of it because she was one of the first people that was able to implement it. Until that point, it was almost impossible to implement anyway. So, I mean, I don't think you can credit her much for that. And apart from that, there wasn't too much that she did. Socially, she did a decent job of integrating herself where she otherwise didn't fit in. So I definitely give her credit for that. But strategically, she made a lot of errors and she trusted Diane when she shouldn't have. And in the final 5, she got completely outplayed when Diane wins the veto and saves Drew and forces Karen to go home. That was a move that Diane made against Nokomis. Nokomis didn't see it coming, and I think at the very least Diane should be ahead of Nokomis for almost that alone. Strategically, Diane was ahead of her, and socially, Diane was ahead of her. And in general, she didn't really do anything in Big Brother All-Stars. Again, she didn't really have an opportunity to, but I didn't see her. From what I had seen, I didn't see much of her making any relationships outside of her own circle. And I think that's always going to be a problem with her games, that at the very least, it's going to take a while for her to integrate herself. Whereas other people are much more socially adept into, I can immediately group myself in with a bunch of people.
Brent, any final thoughts on Nokomis, the daughter of the moon? I just realized that's what Nokomis means. That's the translation,
right?
Daughter of the moon.
Right. Good one. Taking me back. Right. All this talk about whether or not it's Nokomis or Marvin or Mike Lubinsky who invented the back door. I will tell you that as the student of the back door myself, it was Nokomis. Like, come on, like. I have to tell you, it's so funny when I make a joke because there's a little bit of a delay, and then like it looks like crickets on my screen. I'm like, why aren't you guys just laughing at my joke? And then it's like a second later, it's like So anyway, thank you.
Hold on,
I'm here all week.
Early a candidate for the hashtag is That's what the hashtag is.
No, I don't look. She wasn't that high on my list. I had her 13 on my list, and she was iffy there for a second. It ultimately did come down to how look. It's how we view history, and Taran doesn't give that much credence to the fact that she invented this plan and implemented it correctly, and I kind of do, and Alex does, and I think JP you do as well. So it's just a different view of what happened. I will say that. Her getting outplayed by Diane at the Final Five may have the effect of Diane should be ahead of her on the list. But having said that, all of these people have one or two things that were glaring errors, I feel like, in their game that was the reason why they didn't win. And this is the reason why Nokomis didn't win, because she was outplayed by Diane at the end game. And if you remove that, I think she has a real shot to win. Obviously, we don't get to go back and do that. But I do feel like that she played really strongly in Big Brother 5. The move to get Jace out, it gets a lot of credit in my eyes. And there was, I don't even view Big Brother 7 as a season that she played. There wasn't much that she could do. Like, I mean, it was true or false on the last question of that week 2 HOH. If it goes her way, you never know what happens, but instead it went the other way, and she was out in no time. So, oh well.
Yeah. Oh well, indeed. I've been on the butt end of one of those before too. What could have been for Nokomis and JP on Big Brother Canada. You never know. But another conversation for another day. Let's go to number 8 on the list. And I think from this point forward, everybody left has played this game once, other than one person. So and again, this is partially probably because of the small sample size that we haven't really seen these people a lot. So this is where the debates can get a little bit interesting. We'll see. But number 8, this guy was on Big Brother 11. He came in 3rd place. And was really somebody who's very well liked on his season and pretty much was one competition away from winning the game. And that is Kevin Campbell. So Kevin Campbell from Big Brother 11, somebody who if you're not a super fan or a hardcore fan of the show, you might not remember Kevin. But Kevin, I think, was a very solid player socially, and I'm glad that he made it this high on the list. Taran, how do you feel about Kevin Campbell?
I'm very high on Kevin. I used to be higher on him, and then I guess I kind of not remembered that he was probably planning on taking Jordan to the end instead of Natalie, which I think is a big mistake. But I'm still really high on him. I think he probably had a chance to beat Jordan in the final 2 anyway, so it's not a huge fault. And I think he did a really, really good job of breaking up what was a very dominant force with Jeff and Jordan, because after they get the coup d'etat, it's just kind of the Jeff and Jordan show for a little while, and he comes up with this plan to lie about was it Russell, and he completely fools Jeff into targeting Russell when he absolutely shouldn't have, and it is that in itself is responsible for him and Natalie making it to the final 3, and he came very close to winning. I think he's somebody who was very good socially. He was pretty well liked, especially compared to Natalie. He had good strategic instincts. He was a good liar. I think I would love to see Kevin back and to see how he does, because I think he's somebody that nobody really remembers because it was the Jeff and Jordan show. So I don't think he'd have much of a target on his back either. So I'd really love to see him play again, and I think he's a really good player.
Alex, you were the highest on Kevin. You had him at number 6 on your list. I imagine you're in agreement with Taran on that one. How do you think that Kevin would do if he were to come back and play?
Yeah, I think he would do very well. I don't think Kevin really brings any baggage to the table in terms of things you would be worried about, especially on a returnee season where you're going to naturally have, big sharks kind of in the pond. Kevin is not he is a shark, but he doesn't have the appearance of one, and he still doesn't have the reputation of one. And he really should, because this is a guy who really demonstrated all the skills that you would want to see from a great Big Brother player. I mean, in many ways, he kind of like set the, blueprint for a lot of these players that kind of played the floating game with success after him. I think, Andy in many ways played a similar game to Kevin in that they both just kind of stayed very under the radar until the end of the game, at which point you're like, whoa, this is a threat that can really win this game and may even be the front runner, as it turns out. And I think they were. And the only thing that separates Kevin from, winning the game is kind of Jordan just getting, really, really seemingly lucky at that, at the end there. But, he did so much right. I mean, there were many moments throughout the game where you think, Kevin's, coming undone, whether it's where Shima is melting down or, all these different situations where it seems like he's losing an ally and it seems like the tides are going to turn and that whole side or whatever is just going to be picked off. Kevin is in many instances able to kind of keep it from ever becoming, so structured as there being two sides of the house. And so he's never put in a position where he's boxed in. He's always able to kind of navigate. And I think he really did kind of show in a lot of ways what you have to do to set yourself up to have wiggle room in this game.
Brent, you didn't have Kevin on your list. Explain why.
This just comes down to personal preference. I really feel like, I don't have anything negative to say about Kevin necessarily. I really do feel like everyone's giving him a lot more credit for the Russell lie than maybe he should. I mean, it was a lie of necessity. Otherwise, he was going home. So of course he's going to try and do that at some point. I know there are people who have not and have just taken their medicine. But, good on Kevin for doing that. I'm not taking away his credit for the move. I just don't think it's as big of a move that other people think it is. He just wasn't, we're talking about the best here, JP. We're talking about the best to never have won Big Brother. Kevin freaking Campbell, seriously? I can't even believe you guys have him on the list. Seriously, he was no one. He was nobody. He was who? Seriously, I'm besides myself that he's on everybody's list but mine. And he's fine, but again, for him to be in the top 12 and actually to be in the top 8, it's just I don't know. I'm trying to find something negative to say about him, but I'm having trouble because I feel like he just got by on the mistakes of other people. That's how I feel like, besides the Russell lie. And again, that was a mistake on Jeff's part that Kevin created, but still was a mistake that Jeff made.
I think we got to give some credit to, and Taran is saying that to talk to Dom. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Dom Harvey.
Yeah.
Colin Stone just messaged me on Twitter. He sent me a DM and said, "Hey, I can't watch live, but you better be talking about Kevin Campbell in some."
They were very high on Kevin.
Well,
yeah. So Dom and Colin are fans.
Dom and Colin show. Say la vie.
But I think with Kevin, I mean, here's a guy who really at the beginning of this game wasn't in a power position at all, but socially ingratiated himself kind of with everyone, even though he was kind of on the outs, and was never really in a position where he was in trouble for 2 months. So I think that you got to give some credit to his social game, and strategically as well. We got to give Kevin some credit. And Brent, to say, yeah, you're right. Kevin Campbell is not a flashy name at all, but I think that there are a lot of really bad Big Brother players for the most part. For the majority of Big Brother players are not really that great. And I think that Kevin's a guy who didn't make a ton of mistakes. He didn't screw up very often, really, if there's nothing that truly comes to the top of my mind. So because of that lack of egregious errors, I think that is why Kevin's coming in at number 8 here. Is there's nothing we can point to say, okay, this is exactly where he screwed up. If he's in this situation, he's not going to do well. He was calm, he was cool, collected throughout the whole way of the season. And I think that's why that's why I had him on my list. And I imagine that's why, Alex, you had him at 6.
I wouldn't call him
absolutely.
that he was cool, calm, and collected the whole season. I mean, there was that fight with Ronnie. I mean, and maybe the house was with him at that point, but he definitely lost his cool at that point. And
fair. And that's fair.
You were bagging on Janelle for bye bye bitches, and I feel like this is a similar instance, where you're just inviting antagonism on from other people, but.
And I think it's a good point, Brent, but I think you also made an important distinction in that he picked his spots. He never went off on somebody when the house wasn't firmly behind antagonizing that person for something they had done. So there were times, I think, where he would vent to Lydia, and there were other times where he felt like, all right, this is not going to stand, and I have the backing I need, the social capital, if you will, to be able to go off on this person and not have it come back to bite me in the game. So he definitely was capable of that. You're absolutely right. You can't discount the fact that Kevin went off on people a time or two, but I think whether or not we know it for sure, I think he may have had the wherewithal to know when to do it and when not to.
For sure. And also too, the Braden Baca fight, we can't forget about that. The fact that he didn't completely lose it over that, I mean, we got to give him some credit for that. So kudos to Kevin Campbell. He's at number 8. Let's go to number 7 on the list. And this is a guy who finished in 2nd place on his season. He didn't win any HOHs. He won the Power Veto 3 times, and he was nominated 4 times. He is part of one of the most popular alliances in Big Brother history. That is the Renegades, and this is it's none other than Memphis Garrett. Memphis is coming in at number 7 on this list. I don't know if we want to call him the Robin to Dan Giesling's Batman, but we'll go with it. Now, looking at the ranks here, Taran was the highest on Memphis. Taran had him at 6, and well, what do you know? The biggest Dan truther of all of us has Memphis the highest. I believe, let's see, who had him the lowest? It was Alex who had him at the lowest. Alex had him at number 12. So Taran, actually, you know what? We started with you a few times. Let's start with Alex this time. Alex,
hold on though. You called me the biggest. Alex is the biggest Will supporter, and he had Memphis the lowest. So why don't you say it like that?
Okay. Oh, yeah, we can say it that way. The biggest Will truther, Alex Kidwell, who would not fall victim to Dan's mist, as we discussed on the Winner Rankings podcast. Why 12th for Memphis? Why not higher? Because I mean, if we're looking at your list, here's some names that you've got: Diane, you've got Nokomis, you've got Spencer, you've got some other people that I'm not going to spoil.
You're going to drop those before the top 3, you think? Some of the just missed? I think
yes. So
just drop some of those names. Yeah.
So why at number 12 for Memphis, Alex?
I mean, this is somebody who, when I first sent you a list when I'm in Tennessee for the holidays and I sent you a list, he was a lot higher for me. When I came back, I did start to see the comparisons to Cody. Like, I mean, Taran kind of has them next to each other in his list, and I kind of agree that they're pretty similar players, and it just didn't feel right for me to have Memphis super high and not have Cody on my list. And the more I looked at it, the more I felt like, does that mean I really want to bump up Cody, or do I need to drop Memphis? And ultimately, I decided to drop Memphis. And, I would make a lot of the same points in that he probably, he's not going to be an early target unless he really does something wrong. I mean, he's certainly kind of a likable enough guy. He's relatable. He would get along with most guys, and he certainly is capable of flirting with girls.
He's definitely not a womanizer.
He's not a womanizer.
You don't call him a womanizer.
No matter what old man Jerry might say, or anyone else for that matter. But, the fact just comes down to, again, like the reason he lost the final vote by so much. I think there's something there. There's something to the fact that he made relationships without making friends. I wonder if Memphis, and, I've wondered about this too, as someone who's bartended a lot, obviously he has that kind of a background. you need to know how to schmooze people. You need to know how to schmooze people and how to get people to interact with you, but you don't necessarily need to establish like long lasting, you don't need to like forge a relationship. You just need to like build something short term that works. You know what I mean? So I think that's a real strength for Memphis. And I wonder if he might struggle with like winning people's like full hearts over, you know what I mean? And that's kind of the same thing I was trying to get at with Cody, in that these are really likable surface people, but I just wonder if like everybody, once they kind of got deeper in a relationship with this person, whether they would just come off as a little bit plastic in a game like Big Brother, because I don't even know if it's their fault. I mean, they're very good looking guys and they have a lot of, natural people skills, but it almost, I think there's a degree of, Dan has just a genuine way of kind of speaking. Some people have really have down a way of talking to people that seems like you're actively interested in them. And I at times I wonder if Memphis struggles with that. That's really my only knock on him, is I don't know if he's going to be able to do super well without someone like Dan to help guide the nuances of the kind of like social relationships that are necessary to convince people to vote the way you need them to vote.
Now, Taran, you had Memphis, and it's interesting because Alex is talking about this philosophy of, where he wants to put Cody in Memphis. There, if he's going to have Cody down, he's moving Memphis down. You have Memphis and Cody back to back, Taran, but you have Memphis ahead of Cody. Now, why so high on Memphis when really, if it's not for America's player telling Dan to vote to keep Memphis, he's gone very early on. So why have him at number 6? Tell Alex why he's wrong.
Well, basically, I see Memphis as the Hayden archetype, the Hayden, the Drew. But he's, and I think he's right. I don't think he's as good as Hayden, but I think he's kind of close, where he has the strategic acumen to do the things necessary to get far in the game. I think he was doing really well in the game. We don't know exactly what would have happened if not for America's vote, because Dan knew he wasn't going to be in control of his vote. So he just made sure he was good on both sides. And so things might have played out differently had he not had that vote in the first place. So, I'm not sure that he, from my knowledge, I think he's never said that he was definitely going to vote Memphis out, if it wasn't for America's vote. So, he had a lot of people that liked him. Keisha really trusted him. I think really Memphis's biggest fault, kind of similarly to Cody, is that as soon as he hooked up with Dan, despite then dominating the game, Dan made it his job to make sure that Memphis wasn't going to get any votes in the end. So when you have the best player of all time making sure that you're not going to get any jury votes, it's not a surprise that you don't really get any jury votes. I think that in any given season, Memphis is always going to do well. He has the ability to think strategically, to play people, to get close to people, to integrate himself. And we saw what he's capable of with a capable partner. As long as his partner isn't somebody that's as good as Dan Giesling, I think he's probably going to be the dominant partner and he's going to win.
Brent, do you knock Memphis at all for the reason that if he had have won that final HOH, we're assuming he was going to take Dan to the end and then proceed to lose 7-0?
Oh, he certainly was, and he would have again lost 7-0. And I think that first of all, I have him at number 8 on my list, so I don't want to knock him too much. But I basically had like 6 to 7, actually it was 7 people who I knew were in my top 7. I'm like, these people, I love these people, they're great, and here's the reasons why. And then the other people I kind of filled in. I had I think 20 people that I was trying to figure out where I'm going to put them. Memphis, he's a fine player, socially does well with people, well liked by men, well liked by women. Probably isn't going to be targeted because he just doesn't seem like he's that great or that smart at anything. Has the ability to win comps, as we saw coming down the stretch of Big Brother 10. But the thing that holds him back, and I really do take issue with Taran, I don't know if I had to go out for a second. I don't know if you said it when you were talking, but you said in the chat room that he was up against the best player of all time, that was his excuse for not getting any votes in the end. I don't know if that's it, hun, because I think that
it was a facetious comment, but
Okay. Well, but beyond that, I was really, I watched the finale of the show last week. I'm YouTubing and I'm looking at different things, and I was really struck by what Rennie and Jerry both said when they cast their votes. Rennie said, I'm voting for this person. This is an easy vote for me as a professional woman. There are things that matter in life, like a kind word, a hello, a thank you, a how are you today? And it was obvious that she was voting for Dan, and she was pissed at Memphis for basically never giving her the time of day. And then when Jerry put his key in the box, he said, I'm voting on kindness. And it was basically the same thing. There was a lack of empathy that was coming from Memphis that was not evident in Dan. And I think that's why he lost. And that's something that if he came back to the show, I think that would be what he has to work on. Was if people don't like you, they just can't vote for you. And let me say it a different way. I think someone said in the chat room, I think it was Power of Nito. I thought people liked Memphis. They liked him, but they didn't respect him.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, they didn't respect him. I think I said no, but what I was really getting at was respect. You have, there's two people there. Which one of them do you not respect, or which one of them do you do? And I think it was as much about they didn't really respect Memphis as they did respect Dan. I really think both those things were in play at that point, and that's why he lost.
Yeah. People say all the time that the jurors vote for the person they like the most, and I don't think that's true. I think they vote for the person they respect the most, and that accounts for the people that voted Derek over Cody, even though they were closer to Cody. And the same thing kind of goes with Memphis. But the thing about Memphis was that he was close to those people. He was very close to Jerry. He was close to Keisha and Rennie. The problem was that Dan put him in a position where he had to betray them in order to move forward, and that really put them off of him. And that kind of got them angry with him. I think without Dan to kind of maneuver that so that in order to make sure that Memphis doesn't get any votes, I think he probably has their votes. I think if they really felt like he was an unlikable person, they wouldn't have gotten along with him so well in the game. I think it was kind of a postpartum thing where postpartum. That was really dumb.
We know.
It was actually pretty great.
Oh, that was great.
After he gave birth to their
new hashtag candidate.
Gave birth to the Renegades, and then yes.
It really was. No, after he joined the Renegades, that was his biggest mistake, because again, even though it got him all the way to the end, he was never going to win against Dan, and Dan was so good that he boxed him into this corner where he couldn't win against anyone. And somebody asked, like, what was Memphis's winning path? Don't hook up with Dan. He was already in a good enough position. Dan was good insurance, but it was like he let the vampire in the door, and then Dan just took over. And so apart from that mistake, I think Memphis will do very well in a season without Dan. I think he's very good. And I completely agree with they vote for who they respect. They didn't respect Memphis by the end because Dan had played him in circles.
Well, hey, can I ask a question really quick? Tyler is saying in the chat room, so why is he so high on your list? Because you seem to sort of agree with us that there's all these faults in his game, that he let Dan in the door, he let Dan manipulate people, he wasn't doing this, he wasn't doing that. So why is he so high on your list then if you acknowledge all those mistakes?
Well, I think it's again because Dan is like everybody fell victim to Dan. Like there is nobody who didn't fall victim to Dan except for arguably Ian. So like, and even Ian fell victim to Dan. He just kind of won. You know what I mean? Like Ian fell for Dan's stuff. It's just Dan made the mistake and not doing the right things to make Ian fall for. You know what I mean? So like there is nobody we've seen that has been able to make the right decision in the presence of Dan. So it's hard to discredit him so much because of that mistake.
Okay, cool.
Right,
by the way, I just want to say really quickly in the chat room, like, because I'll never get another chance to say this again. My all-time biggest crush in Big Brother history, Memphis Garrett. Oh my God, that boy was so good looking. I loved him. He was great. And when he got married, I was so bummed. Seriously, like, not that I ever have a chance, but you know.
So you were a big Renegades fan.
I was a huge Renegades fan. Yes,
yeah, because you were talking about
time. Yes.
Yeah, because you were talking about how Dan was he was so sexual and in the diary room.
I know. It's the cocky straight boy thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's terrible. By the way, I want to give equal time. I don't want to seem like the big perv on the panel. You guys can always say who your favorite, Big Brother crush is. I'm just, I'm throwing that in there.
Well, you know what? You know what, guys? We're before the top 6. This is going to be a 3-hour podcast anyway, so let's take a quick intermission. Why not? Let's. If Memphis is Brent's biggest Big Brother crush, let's go
really
around
curious.
the horn.
I really am.
Yeah. So Taran, do you have a Big Brother crush?
Well, I don't know about crush, but like I think Cassie Colvin from Big Brother 13 was the most attractive person to play the game for sure.
She is amazing.
Like it's not close. It's not close.
All right, there we go. Not close, Taran. All right, and it's very fitting that at Survivor Tyler in the chat is saying Aaron for me. We know Tyler Kakuno likes. Alex, Big Brother crush for you, my friend?
Man, I think I might go Michelle Merity.
Really? Like from Big Brother 5?
Big Brother 4.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Michelle. Okay.
Although I think I would also put Jesse Kowalski up there.
Wow. So you like
Jesse
all right. Jesse Killer Kowalski is your type. All right.
Kowalski,
there we go.
That's right.
All right. So this is strictly based on looks then, Alex.
Who said that? Why are you minimizing these women and their legacies on the Big Brother game? I don't know what you're insinuating.
I don't know if you follow the social media and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure Jesse's very nice in real life, but
someone just needs to tell her it was a game she played. That's all.
Oh yeah, and people are mentioning Johnny Mac. I'll go with Johnny Mac.
Good looking dude, Johnny Mac.
He got ripped by the end.
Yeah.
He did.
My Big Brother crush probably. Ooh, that's really hard. Oh man, picking just one. Yeah, everyone in the chat is saying Cindy. No, definitely not.
No,
Cindy.
it's not Cindy.
No. I would probably say Nicole from Big Brother 16. I really love Nicole Franzel. So,
all right.
but I'm not.
You and Ian can start a fan club.
Yeah, no, I'm not a home wrecker. Nicole and Hayden seem very happy, so we'll go with I'll go with Nicole. But she's just great. Who doesn't love Nicole? Nicole's awesome. Okay, let's get back to the ranks. All right, intermission is over. Number 6 on the list is somebody who played in Big Brother 12. He finished in 7th place. He won Head of Household twice. He won 0 Power of Vetoes, but he won sort of a Power of Veto, kind of, not really. It was part of Pandora's box, so I guess we'll credit him with 1 Diamond Power of Veto.
Yeah, joke's on you big dummy.
He was nominated 3 times. He is the creator of the Brigade Alliance and the Side Alliance concept that went with it. It's Matt Hoffman, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Hoffman, very familiar with those of you who are fans of Rob Has a Podcast. He comes in at number 6. Now, he was, let's see, for everybody, he was number 5 for Alex. He was also number 5 for me. He was at number 9 for Taran. And he was all the way down at number 14 for Brent. So, Brent, let's start with you. Why have Matt at number 14 overall? Why were you not the highest on Mr. Hoffman?
Well, I do have him in my top 15. On the other hand, I didn't see a lot of there. I saw a lot of talk and a lot of great diary rooms and a lot of, I'm the diabolical super genius. And, I have my wife is dying of cancer or whatever the hell he was saying at the time. And, I saw a lot of gimmicks, I felt like, on Matt's part and a lot of sayings. I didn't see a lot of oomph in his game. And I think that's summed up by 2 main moves that I think show that he is not one of the best Big Brother players to ever win the game, at least not in my top 10. He has an amazing power that has never before been given to anybody in the history of Big Brother. The Diamond Power of Veto. Okay? He's on the block. He gets to choose the nominee. He gets to choose the person who he wants to get rid of, essentially. And he picks Kathy? Like, I was beside myself. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even looking back on it, he knows how much of a dummy move it was. And the other thing was, the brigade really outplayed him. The group, I mean, as a whole, they outplayed him because they really sent everybody out to pasture and said, you find someone else to hook up with, you find someone else, you find someone else. Everybody had someone they were hooking up with, so to speak. They were getting to know a side alliance, essentially. And he really let that side alliance, or at least the perception of it, overshadow his main alliance in the house, and that's why they got rid of him. He wasn't aware enough, he wasn't a good enough player to realize, I'm spending so much time with Reagan, my alliance they think that I'm not loyal to them anymore. I need to do something to rectify that. He didn't recognize the threat that was apparent by his relationship with Reagan and how everyone perceived them to be eternally close within the game. And he paid the price for it with his, quote unquote, life in the game. And I wasn't that impressed by what Matt did. I have him on my list. He's obviously higher than some other people. But I just didn't think that he was that amazing of a player. Two of you have him in your top 5, and I would love to know why.
All right. Well, Alex, let's hear from you. Why do you have him in your top 5?
All right. Well, I mean, I totally recognize everything Brent's saying as far as like the flaws, the mistakes he made. But more than that, Matt Hoffman totally recognizes everything Brent's saying, and he did right away. And I think that's something that's often understated. How many people, I mean, you could try to tell Cindy with an S to this day that she made the wrong move, evicting you. She went home next, and she would still tell you you're 100% wrong. You know what I mean? Like, there are plenty of people who play this game, more than half, I would say, by probably a good margin, that still don't recognize exactly what it was that sent them home. And Matt, he had it pinpointed after he went home, he watched the footage, and he knew right away. You know what I mean? I think he brings a level of awareness, a level of savviness, and a level of understanding of all the strategic ins and outs of the game that most people, in fact, probably 99% of people that have played this game, probably all but maybe 1 or 2 people that are probably ahead of him on our lists here, bring to the table. And while he didn't necessarily execute everything the way he was capable of, I certainly saw potential there that would make me like drool to see him back on any potential season. I think he would do very well. I think, like you talked about, he did get himself into trouble, but his problem was that he was so sure of what a great thing he had concocted that he was like, he overdid. You know what I mean? It's like he really trusted that he had set up Lane and Hayden and Enzo with such a golden ticket in this core thing that he felt he was safe to go off and really kind of, build the Brittany and Reagan. I mean, he did almost as much to keep Brittany in line as Lane did at times. I mean, he really took it upon himself to do a lot of the legwork that they all talked about doing at the beginning. Matt's the one that really put in most of the effort and then ultimately paid the price for them realizing just how good a game he had played. Because I guarantee you, if he's able to go to the end and that story is not out, I mean, he wins handily. I mean, they're sobbing for him and his wife and all that, and he could tell them later under his piles of money. But you know what I mean? It's to me,
show that would have been too,
and how insightful to even think of doing that and to have the balls to do that. I think says something as well. Like it would have worked. I firmly believe it would have worked. He told them just because he is honestly a good guy. I do believe that, and he really just wanted to try something in a game that doesn't really have rules about morality. You know what I mean? But I do believe he has a firm moral code. He knows where the line is in real life, and he's one of these guys that I think, more so than almost anyone who's ever played, could come into any given season, assess and target, and know exactly, kind of outline his steps, figure out short-term and long-term goals, and get himself somewhere pretty much universally. And I don't think there's a lot of people you can say that about.
Yep, Brent's got his hand up. Yes.
I'm sorry. There was one thing I wanted to add really quickly before we hear from Taran. The bigger problem, besides nominating Kathy, that I have with Matt's move to use the Diamond Power of Veto there is, remember, he couldn't tell anybody about this power. He was on the block. Brendan was HOH. He had been told by the members of his alliance, because he was up against a brigade member. Was it Enzo who was on the block next to him? Was it Lane? I'd have to look it up. It was a brigade member that was
pretty I think it was Lane. Or was it Brittany's HOH? So then it was Hayden. Am I wrong about that? I don't know.
No, it was definitely Brendan's HOH. I can look it up.
Brendan,
anyways,
right.
Now, Brent, keep talking. I'll get it for you.
Okay, sounds great.
It was Lane.
The thing was that they told him, the brigade told him, look, if it's you or him, we're gonna evict you. Like, I mean, like, we don't have a choice. We have to do this. I mean, he knew at that point he was fourth on the totem pole, and he still stayed loyal to him. A better player would have reversed course at this point and said, you know what? I realize I'm fourth with these guys. I'm fourth out of 4. I need to do something to change my fate. He didn't do it. He played it safe. I give credit to him for recognizing his mistake after the fact, Alex. But there are plenty of people on the list or not on the list who recognize their mistakes and said, oh, yeah, I should have done this. Oh, yeah, I should have done that. It's in the moment. What did you do? How did you execute your plan to win Big Brother? And he didn't. And that was a huge glaring error on his part. Like I said, I have him on my list, but not that high because he was basically told to his face, you're not our number 2. Nobody in this alliance is taking you to the end. And he still stayed loyal to them. I can't understand that move to this day.
And just to fact check for Brent. So yes, it was Brendan's HOH. Lane and Reagan were put on the block. Reagan won the veto. Matt went up and they said, okay, you're against Lane. Sorry, Matt, but we're going to have to vote you out. Taran, yep. I'll let you weigh in on your thoughts with Matt Hoffman.
Yeah, I will say about the him knowing that they were going to vote him out. I can understand it to an extent because just because you're at the bottom of the totem pole doesn't mean that you have to ditch the totem pole entirely. You can climb the totem pole, especially if you have connections to the other side that will take shots at people above you. And I think that's probably what he was going to try to do. But he definitely should have used that information to do something because he was in a lot of hot water and he didn't realize it. I don't think he should have turned on the brigade in that moment, but he should have solidified his relationships. He was way too trusting of Hayden and Enzo, and they were going behind his back and degrading all of his relationships to the point where they turned on him. So that was definitely a big mistake. Another mistake throughout the game, he had these little moves here and there that they just didn't work how he thought they would. Like telling Rachel and Brendan to put him on the block, thinking like this will make them trust me. And they're like, why is he so sketchy? Like there were a lot of moves here and there that put this image of him out into the world that was, hey, I'm a schemer and you need to be careful of me. And I think honestly, the biggest mistake he made was underestimating Hayden. Hayden was a lot savvier than he gave him credit for, and Hayden recognized, hey, Matt's gonna beat us all if we don't take a shot at him. And Enzo came along to that thinking as well, and Hayden and Enzo together were able to completely dismantle his entire game. And I think that's a huge mistake, and I think he recognizes it. And I think like the reason I have him so high at number 9, which is still pretty high, is because I think he'd do a lot better if he went back. I think he's probably learned from his mistakes more so than most people would, but I haven't seen it yet, so that's why he's not higher than that. I give him a lot of credit for the way that he set the brigade up. The other people deserve some other credit for other aspects of the brigade, but he probably more than anyone else should be credited for the success of the brigade. He set it up perfectly. And one thing that Brent mentioned earlier in the podcast, like 15 hours ago, is that one of the biggest reasons that the brigade was successful is because Brendan and Rachel were these glaring targets for so much of the game. They were like these huge distractions. And Matt is the one that recognized that. He's the one that everyone was telling him, get out Brendan and Rachel. And he was like, I don't know. And he kept them in the game. And he didn't handle it as well as he could have because he never really gave like good reasons for it. He's just like, maybe we should do something else. But like, and it made people suspicious of him. But ultimately, it helped his alliance. And he had these good strategic ideas. He just didn't implement them correctly. He didn't get a good enough read on his situation. I think if he came back, he has the potential to do really well. And he's also like one of my favorite people to play Big Brother. He's really awesome.
Yeah, he's a great dude, Matt Hoffman. And I'm 100% with you, Taran. I think if he were to go back, it would be different. I think that he let hubris get the best of him the first time. That's where you see the volunteering to go up with Brendan and Rachel and then telling people, no, they're putting me up. And just that whole backfired. And all that kind of stuff. I think if he were to play again, I think with a newfound perspective on how things went the first time, I think he plays a much better game. And I think that we could see Matt Hoffman win this game. Will he get that chance? I don't know.
I hope so.
I would love to see him play again. Number 5 on the list is from season 13 of Big Brother. She is somebody who I was actually surprised made it this high on the list. I had her lower than Matt Hoffman and a few other people, but I think is a very impressive player. She came in 6th place. She has the old Jordan Parhar special of 0 HOHs and 0 POVs. She was nominated 3 times, and that is Shelly Moore. So Shelly Moore comes in at number 5 on this list, I believe. Yes, and looking at this, Taran, you were the highest on her at number 5 overall. So right on the money. So explain to us why you've got Shelly in this position.
I love Shelly. I think I think we're getting to the point in the list where we're starting to see people that probably would have won if not for maybe some unfair things that happened toward them. And I think she fits that category. She was doing very well in the game. And then this crazy, pair.
Let's just call it what it is. It was unfair. It was rigged. It was just I can't even believe that the FCC didn't call him on it. Like, it was so unfair. But go ahead, Taran.
Yeah. It was almost a different game. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately she got a lot of flack. Like, she didn't even get to reap the benefits of the thing that was going to get her hated by America. So it was like the worst of both worlds. I think she was a very good liar. I think she played both sides very well, and she was in the majority for almost the entire game, in some way or another. And I genuinely think I don't see much opposition in her way if that twist doesn't, screw her over. I think she probably wins, as much as you can say for how far she was out. So I think she deserves a lot of credit, and I think she's pretty well placed here at 5. So,
Alex, thoughts on Shelly?
Yeah, I had her not much lower than this, just a little lower. I think, I kept her for most of the, iterations of my list. She moved around a little. She was always there, and she was always right there near Kevin for me, because I think they're both people who really hold a kind of a similar era of the game, like not what you would call modern Big Brother, but whatever came right before this, you know what I mean? The early teens or whatever. I think they both showed examples of how you play this game while maximizing options. They just always kept their options open. They never really burned any bridges until they had to. And I think that's something you can't really understate. Shelly, like, obviously she's put in that tough situation week 1 where she has to, pick a side and lines are kind of drawn, and she's still able to kind of navigate some degree of middle ground for the bulk of the game. And no one else is really allowed to do that. Like, people who try get in trouble, for double dealing, like Danny. And Shelly somehow is able to, ride it pretty much interchangeably throughout the season. Nobody really feels like she's enough on anyone's radar where she really comes up in conversation. And as Taran touched on, she's a fantastic liar. I mean, one of the best, I think, in the game that we've seen is, it's one of these people that can just, look you in the eye, tell you anything. And it looks just the same as if she was telling you truth, which is a great skill. And I think another thing that she really brought to the table was just a total flexibility. Like, she saw which way the winds were blowing. She, at first you can argue that, that the rookies have the numbers, and if she doesn't go the way of the veterans at the beginning, that maybe, she's in a better position. But she certainly kind of saw the direction things were going. She's always on the right side of the vote. She's always, talking to the right people, and she's having a lot of very, very key conversations. So it's one of these players, again, who, for me, I really tend to credit players who, regardless of number of comp wins, this is someone who I think will navigate their way successfully through the bulk of most seasons solely on their social skills.
Brent, are you behind that? Do you agree with that notion? And do you think that Shelly's game, where she's playing this very high risk, both sides type of deal, do you think that can translate to any season?
I don't know. I do think that she got a little lucky that they never really, because it's so funny in recent seasons, if there's a hinky vote, if there's a vote that doesn't go the way people think it's supposed to go, people get to the bottom of it. There's no hiding, who did what vote and who voted what way. She was able to do that and lie to people's face And they never even considered her to be a suspect. It was boggling to me. I remember watching like a month ago on YouTube this video where Shelley comes into a room right after Keith is voted out. And she's like, well, someone's going to have to pay for this. And I can't believe we have liars around here. And she's in a bedroom talking with 3 or 4 or 5 different people. And they're all basically the people who should have voted one way. And somehow they never even consider that she is a likely suspect. I will say this, though. I don't give her any crap for the vote during week 1 by going with the vets. Because Kalia was voting that way anyway. And if Shelley had voted the way that we wanted her to vote, which was with the newbies, then it would have been a tie and Rachel would have evicted Keith anyway. So, I mean, she really didn't lose anything by going with the majority at that point, but she gained a lot of trust with the vets by voting the way that she told them she was going to vote. I have her at number 10 on my list, and I think I'm the lowest out of everybody. The reason I have her as low as I do is even with the twist, I still do think she pulled the trigger on Jeff 1 week too soon. She let her emotions get the best of her right before that double eviction where anything can happen. She was yelling at Jeff. She got into a fight with him where I think the stress of the game had gotten to her at that point. I think a week 1, week 4, week 3, Shelley would not have gotten into a fight with Jeff at that point. And she was really vulnerable at that point. She ended up pulling the trigger, but I remember in the finale, she always said that she pulled the trigger on Jeff 1 week too soon. I'm dubious of that with the twist. If the twist isn't there, maybe that's not true. But as the game stands, she did pull the trigger on Jeff 1 week too soon. And I think if she had waited, if she had held her fire 1 more week, I think that Jeff and Jordan were always going to be split up by anybody in the game at that point, and Shelley would have been free to coast to the end. So, and by the way, I think Tyler asked in the chat room, can she ever win a jury vote? Hell yeah, she can win a jury vote. I mean, I know that she had told some lies and people had gotten upset with her, but she was a mom. She had a kid. She had a husband. She was really kind to people. The things that got Dan the win, I think, are things that would have gotten Shelley the win. A hello, a thank you, a how are you, taking interest in the lives of other people. And I think she clearly would have had a shot to win at the end. In fact, this is the only person on my list that once I submitted my list, because I didn't look at anybody else's rankings, I left the list as it was. I didn't want to change it based on the opinions of other people. But having a second look and thinking about it a little further, I definitely should have bumped her up a few slots. I mean, she really is an amazing player and amazing person after the fact.
Yeah, and she was very well liked by everyone on her cast, despite turning on people, and also despite the fact that she got so much hate from America after voting out Jeff in that double eviction, which is crazy and awful that she had to go through that. But another podcast for another day. Let's move on to the top 4, baby, of this ranking. So let's go and review what we've got so far. And this top 4 is kind of these guys are kind of in a tier of their own, because if we look at the points, and I'll get into it, but they're pretty close. They're clearly ahead of the pack from everyone else. Now, so number 12 we had Enzo with 13 points. Number 11 we had Diane Henry with 14. Number 10, Janelle Prezina with 16. Number 9, Nokomis Deadman with 19. Number 8, Kevin Campbell with 23 points. Number 7, Memphis Garrett with 28 points. Number 6, Matt Hoffman with 31 points. Number 5, Shelley Moore with 34 points. This next person in number 4 has 47 points. It goes 47 points, 53 points, 54 points, and 59
Very
points.
close.
So this is kind of a class of its own, if you will. All right. So number 4 on the list is somebody who I am a huge fan of, somebody who, when I watched this guy, I used to, when I was really young and I first would watch Big Brother, I would go to the CBS website and I would look at people and I'd be like, all right, that's my favorite. And I would just pick based on the bio and I would roll with that person for the season. 8-year-old logic. And this guy, I picked right off the bat. I was like, this guy is my favorite. I love this guy. He's going to be my favorite. And to this day, one of my favorite Big Brother players ever, from Big Brother 3. He finished in 3rd place. He had 1 HOH one POV, and he was nominated once, but it was only by default because there was nobody left to be nominated. So he had his key pulled out of the nomination box every single time that season. He's in a special class of his own with Daniel Reyes and Derek Levasseur to achieve that feat, and that is the widely beloved Jason Guy. So Jason Guy comes in at number 4 on the list. I was the highest on Jason. I had Jason at number 3. Alex and Taran had Jason at number 4, and Brent had Jason at number 7. Alex, talk to us about Jason Guy, and how do you feel about him coming in at number 4?
Yeah, I mean, I had him at 4. I think that's about right. He's kind of hard to rank because we haven't seen him in so long, and the game he played was so archaic compared to, the game played now. So it's hard to know for sure, if Jason were to come back now, how good he would be. I mean, there's a lot more nuances to the game now. That being said, I mean, the things that we thought made a good Big Brother player then still in many ways apply now. And that's, great social skills, personable. You'll find that a lot of the people towards the top of my list and, all of our lists, like with, I think, Matt Hoffman demonstrated this. I think Jason demonstrates this. I think a lot of these people, certainly Shelley had a degree of this, which is just kind of unflappability. Like they never really let themselves get riled, even when their game was, seemingly blown up and thrown in their face. These are people that were still calm and were, never really like rising to the occasion and meeting people at an emotional level. They really just kind of took everything in stride. And I think that's got to be really difficult to do. As someone who struggles with that in my day-to-day personal life, I can't imagine how hard that would be in the context of the Big Brother house. So I think Jason should get a lot of points for just kind of his just unflappability through a season where he really did just kind of, maneuver very, very effortlessly with Danielle. I mean, they exercised their will throughout the entire season. They got it done exactly what they wanted done when they wanted it done. And I mean, really, I think, some people have said, Jason was almost too nice, but then, he certainly, he was able to pull the trigger on Marcellus when the time came, and he was able to do it, I think, in the best way possible, which is, Marcellus, I'm really sorry. You shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like he's very just naturally, he brings the skills without having to try that you would want to see in a great Big Brother player, because he just seems like such a warm, friendly, endearing, likable guy. I know he's gone on to get into news and stuff like that, right? So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that he went on to a career in media because he seems like the kind of guy that would, so naturally kind of adapt to that kind of an environment. And I it's hard to know what, Jason, a father of, 2 or 3 in his, late 30s or whatever he is now, it's hard to know what that would look like as a Big Brother player. But from everything I remember watching from Big Brother 3, from going back and watching clips, you don't see anything really not to like about this guy other than maybe he slept on Danielle a little bit when he shouldn't have.
Jason, I mean, and yeah, going with what you just said, I love that point of just he doesn't have to try. It's because he really is just a nice guy. So naturally, I mean, that's just who he is. Brent, you were the lowest on Jason. Why Jason down at 7? You had let's see who you had. You had Frankie, you had Janelle, you had a couple, and the rest of the top 3 ahead of Jason. So why Jason where he's at?
And I had Erica Landon, by the way, as my number 5
who did not even make this
person.
List.
Right, who didn't even make
Erica
the
Landon
list.
did not even make the list.
That was the other person I was considering for an honorable mention. Again, a runner-up and a 4th place finish. I don't know how you can't have her on the list, but fine, that's besides the point. And really, it's just a matter of the strength of other people. I have nothing bad to say about Jason's game. He was a fine player, socially eternally well-liked. He played a monster game with Danielle. The thing that I've always wondered about with Jason is how he would do in a season without Danielle. It's a bit of the unknown. He had somebody who's by all accounts considered to be one of the best players to ever play the game, period, end of story. And he was right there with her in the beginning. And how much did he benefit from that? On the other hand, how much did she benefit from him? I think it was Brian Gold on Twitter he said he hoped that somebody would make a case that Jason Guy is better than Danielle Reyes. I cannot make that case today, but I think it's close. I think that they were in a great symbiotic relationship. That's twice today I've used that word. That's a $3 word. And I think that it was great watching him play because he was just so innately good at the game. He hardly had to try. But on the other hand, that's one of the reasons why I have him a bit low on my list, because he kind of didn't have to try. He's just sort of that guy, I like seeing people who actually have to like maybe change their personality or change their disposition in order to further themselves in the game. Jason never had to do that. He's just a really sweet guy and somebody that everybody would like to take home to their mom, including me. And so I don't understand why anybody would ever want to vote him out, other than, as a threat and an impediment to your win, as Lisa did at the final three. So again, nothing bad to say about him. He was just elbowed out by other people on the list who I thought were a bit better and a bit more deserving.
Taran, how do you feel about the Jason? And how do you think he would have been as great without Danielle guiding him early on?
I do, and I don't think sleeping on Danielle was a mistake. I think because this is what broke my heart, because I considered Jason's game head and shoulders above Danielle's game in Big Brother 3. So when I came down to rating them, Danielle or Jason, I had always kind of thought like, well, Jason played better, and I think he absolutely played a way better game than Danielle in Big Brother 3. He would have decimated her. She would have taken him. I think his Big Brother 3 game is so good. The thing that gets me and the thing that breaks my heart is that it's a different game because the jury isn't sequestered. And because of that, we've never had a chance to see him play the modern game. And because of that, I don't know how he'd do. And I got a chance to see Danielle play the modern game, and she did really well against one of the best players of all time. So it really just comes down to the information we have. I have more data on Danielle. She's proven herself to be capable in the modern era of Big Brother. Jason, we just haven't seen that, and I'm not sure how I think he'd do really well, but I don't have the evidence there in front of me. I love him. He's such an amazing person, and he was amazing at that game. Probably one of the best single played games in the entirety of Big Brother. I need to see him in a modern season. I need to see how that works with him.
And the sad thing is now that he is, and you follow him on Twitter at Jason the News Guy. He's
always posting news. He is.
Yes, he is a news anchor now. So I think it's highly unlikely we will see him play on Big Brother again. But I'm with you. It would have been nice to get that opportunity. All right, let's move on from Jason. Let's move on to number 3 on this list, and this is somebody who some people have said that this person is the greatest player to never win. But according to this rank for this podcast, she did not get that position, unfortunately. She played twice. She played in Big Brother 3. She finished in second place. She won 1 head of household, 1 POV, was nominated once by default. And she played in Big Brother All-Stars. She finished in 6th, won 1 HOH, 1 POV, and was nominated 3 times. We're probably going to get a lot of flack for this. She was close. She was 1 point away.
Very close.
From getting to number 2. And that person is the legendary Danielle Reyes. So Danielle Reyes is number 3 on this list. I am surprised personally that this is where she finished. Taran and I had Danielle at number 2. Alex had Danielle at number 3, and Brent had Danielle at number 4. Taran, talk to us and explain why you have Danielle as your number 2 Big Brother player of all time. And you got into it a little bit, but let's hear a little more about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't think she played a very good Big Brother 3 game. I don't think there was really any chance of her winning, except maybe being up against Amy. The problem is we're not playing Big Brother 3 anymore. I think she's a great modern Big Brother player. I think she didn't have the adaptability to adapt to a Big Brother 3 game, but it doesn't matter because we're never going to see a Big Brother 3 game again. She has plenty of ability to adapt to any modern season. We saw her in Big Brother All-Stars make what Brent said was the correct strategic move, but then almost backfired on her, but managed to survive, managed to entrench herself, and managed to really do really well when she shouldn't have. She should have been one of the biggest targets in All Stars for sure, and she managed to ride it out for a long time. The only reason she was beat was because she was up against Will, and Will was able to out manipulate her. And she put up a hell of a fight. Knocking on that door for however long she was. But really, I think it just comes down to, we've seen so much of her ability to manipulate, to strategize, to do well in the game, and she's not a person that is always going to have a problem with the jury vote. She would have won All Stars handily if she had made it to the end, because that was a modern game. So I think she's easily in the top 3. I think she just outshines who eventually will be number 2 on the overall list, just because she has better social skills and she's a much calmer player.
People in the chat are not happy about this. We had somebody who said, bullshit. That's what somebody said. So I think that we made, there's lots of candidates for hashtags today. It's great. But again, guys, this is a subjective list. This is our personal rank. This is how we feel about it. And when we got 4 people putting our heads together, this is what we came up with. And you could certainly debate that Danielle is number 1. But Brent, you had Danielle at 4, so you were the lowest of us on Danielle. For you, did the fact that Danielle wanted to go to the end in season 3 with Jason, a guy who would beat her, and then again in season 7 wanting to go to the end with James Ryan, somebody who also could have potentially beat her, did that make you knock Danielle a little bit in your rankings?
Yes to the former, no to the latter. In no universe is James Ryan beating Danielle in Big Brother All Stars. There's no way that they're going to award that whining little bitch the money over Danielle Reyes. No way. That jury.
There's a reason James Ryan isn't on our list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know how the jury viewed James Ryan during Big Brother 7. They did not have any respect for him whatsoever. But we're here to talk about Danny Reyes. First of all, I see the chat. Let me just say, I love Danny Reyes. Who doesn't love Danny Reyes? We all love Danny Reyes. She's freaking fabulous. She was the first really gamer to come into the game, besides Dr. Will, the first female gamer to come into the game. She was just legendary in terms of her cutthroat nature of, being so nice to your face, but then be behind your back, that infamous countdown that she had. Like I said, yes to the former, because I don't understand her. She's, again, all these people have glaring errors in my opinion. She has a glaring error in Big Brother 3. She's at the Final 4. She's the head of household. There is no veto. She essentially gets to decide who goes home. And she essentially evicts Amy at that point, leaves Jason off the block. I don't understand it at that point. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and it's possible the jury could have voted for Amy, but that was her best shot. She was ride or die with Jason Guy, and that was a losing formula all the way around. And the same thing that I give Cody flack for by, essentially playing a game that benefited Derek. This is the same thing here. Danielle played a game that ultimately would have only benefited Jason. I mean, he was the only one who's going to win from playing that sort of a game. It was either him or Lisa at that point. Danielle was not winning. There was no way she could win. And she should have known that people at home, that was the game at that point. People at home, when they were evicted, they would go home and watch the show on TV. She should have known that being such a complete, sorry for the word, bitch in the diary room was going to rub people the wrong way. I love Danny Reyes. I think she should have won Big Brother at this point, but she hasn't. And the reason she hasn't is because of the mistakes she made in Big Brother 3 and getting baited into a battle with Janelle by one of the best players to ever win the game, in Dr. Will, and essentially suffering for it there. I mean, if she's not in a battle with Janelle, one of them wins the game, and Will and Boogie are evicted. But instead, both of them let themselves get baited into that fight that went back and forth what seemingly forever in Big Brother All-Stars, and neither one of them ultimately benefited from it. So I have her at number 4 on my list. She's a great player, but that doesn't mean, and we love her, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have faults. She does.
And pretty much everybody, every human player of Big Brother has faults. If we're talking about the gods of the game, then it's a little bit different. Alex, any closing thoughts on Danielle Reyes?
Yes, and I'm glad I get to finish because really, it's splitting hairs and it's tough when we're talking about these people who we all kind of had towards the top, but in varying orders. And certainly, I shuffled them about within just the hierarchy of the top 4 or whatever a few times. To me, the thing like Taran talked about that put her just above Jason for me was the second time out and her success of converting to a more complicated game, the body of work like you talked about. The thing that kept her out of the top 2 for me, and this is why I'm glad I get to close here, was actually a personal exchange I had with her that I've just pulled up from Twitter on September the 4th, 2015. And to me, it's an exchange where I had to clue her in about a strategic nuance of the game, a conversation I would never have to have with the 2 people I have above her on the list. So Danielle Reyes said on September 4th, 2015, I woke to find Steve won HOH. It really doesn't matter if Off's twins win veto. Why? Numbers. The only positive is that he's safe for 1 week. To which I replied, well, it does if it's anyone but Julia, because they can only save themselves. Danielle said, what do you mean? And I said, well, he'll nominate Liston. If either wins, they can only save themselves. So the other goes home 2-1 with Vanessa and Johnny Mac evicting. So only a Julia win saves them. So that was like a nuance of the modern era that Danielle needed some clarification on. And to me, it wasn't like she didn't see it. It was like it was the same time that Rob had like a similar, like, I don't see how they could possibly win now. It doesn't add up to me. So she wasn't the only one having that thought in that moment. But I can't call her the best player to never win if she can't see the forest through the trees in that moment.
She's not in the game, and she's not watching it like we are. She's watching a TV show for 1 hour a night, like she's not thinking about it that deeply.
Yeah, Alex, I gotta say, I've got to say that's some bullshit. I'm sorry, but it is.
Hey man, to me, it was a microcosm of a situation. It was something that I never believe I would ever have to explain to the 2 people I put above her. And that's the thing. I only put 2 people above her. I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just saying we had to have an exchange that the other 2 people on this list would not need. They know that. They don't need that reminder. You know what I mean? That's a small minutia of a detail, but it is a detail.
Yeah, I don't know how big of a fan someone is of a season, how close they're following a season that takes place 14 seasons after your initial season.
Well, to me, this was an example of her not understanding the rules, not her not understanding the players involved.
She could have done a miscalculation of the numbers, really.
Yeah, I mean, she's not in the house. She's not thinking about it. I'm not going to fault her for that. But I see your point, but okay. I'm not gonna hold in terms of how if we are splitting hairs.
We're splitting hairs. We are at this point.
We are. We really are. Okay. Let's go to number 2 on this list. And I've loved seeing the chat room earlier. They were trying to figure out who it was in the top, and somebody had the top 4 correct, but there was no order. So we're down to the final 2. And should we what do you guys think? Should we just reveal number 1 and then number 2 and then debate who's better? Or because I think that might be more fun. I think that would be more fun because we actually 3 of us, and this really surprised me because 3 of us had one person at number 1, and I did not think that person was going to finish at number 1. I knew that I was going to put that person at number 1, but I thought that I was going to be contrarian and I was going to be like Tyler Kakuno and so different from everyone else. But no, Alex and Taran also had this person at number 1. Brent had someone else at number 1. So,
it's Jody, guys. It's Jody.
Yes, Jody and Chicken George are the 2 people that we're debating.
Caleb C. Gibbs in the chat was right.
So number 1 on the list came in, had 59 points, and number 2 on the list had 54 points. This is going to probably spark a lot of controversy, and people are probably going to be very upset. But again, this is what happens when you get a bunch of RHAP people together, so do not kill us. Number 1 on our list of best Big Brother players to never win. From Big Brother 8, he's America's player. It's Eric Stein, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Stein is number 1 overall on this list. And that's there. And if you're not watching if you're only listening to the audio, Brent Wolgamott just got up and left. He was so upset. So Number 2 is Vanessa Russo. Vanessa is number 2. Brent had Vanessa at number 2. So let's debate this a little bit.
I had her at number
sorry,
1.
Yeah, sorry. Brent, yes, Brent had Vanessa at number 1.
I had Vanessa at number 1. I had Eric Stein at number 2. And I just want to say, I was the last person to put in my rankings. And after I had my rankings done, I was going to input them. And I saw that all of you had put Eric Stein at number 1. I considered sandbagging Eric to make sure that Vanessa ended up number 1. but I didn't do it because I thought that would be unethical. But seriously.
Too much integrity.
Too much integrity. Yeah, I would have been the Cody of the season. Yeah. Can't make the decision at the end.
Everyone in the chat is very mad and upset. I imagine in the comments, this is not going to be good. I had one person, I think it was Stacy in the chat, was like, yeah, Eric. Everyone else is like, Vanessa's getting robbed again, which, it's fair. And, I will admit I am biased because Eric is my favorite player of all time. That's why I have him at number 1. I can't speak for Alex and Taran, but that – regardless, this is again very subjective, and that is why this is an RHAP thing, or at least it's on RHAPpy.com. So you probably shouldn't be too surprised that Eric Stein is who came in at number 1. Brent, tell us why Vanessa is better than Eric in your opinion.
Because I feel like there is more of a body of work out there for Vanessa rather than for Eric. I know they've each played one season, but Eric played one season with one hand tied behind his back, and he did well in that season. In fact, exceedingly well in that season. But left to his own devices, I'm not sure how things would have looked for Eric and if he would be so beloved by everybody. I feel like he's gotten a lot more mileage out of the losing game that he played by virtue of the fact that he was hamstrung as America's player than if he would have just been a regular player like anybody else and lost the game and kind of been an afterthought. So here's the thing. Let's talk about Vanessa, and because you guys each, let's see, Taran had her at number 3, Jordan had her at number 4, Alex had her at number 2, and I had her at number 1. So we each at 1, 2, 3, 4. I was the only person who ranked her number 1. Vanessa played an immaculate game in Big Brother 17. She was an absolute bulldozer who still had the respect of the jury. Had she gotten to the end, she would have won against either of those people. Steve knew it, and it's just amazing to me that she played such a hardcore gamer game using terms like incentivized and just absolutely mind effing people into doing what she wanted them to do. And she's a woman, and the jury wouldn't have held that against her. I mean, it was so thrilling to see, because usually when you're the girl who's pulling the strings and you're screwing people over left and right, people don't want to give you the money. They want to do what happened to Dawn in Survivor, Caramon, where we don't want to give it to you. You screwed us over. How could you screw us over? We trusted you. Vanessa, people absolutely would have given her the money. I've never seen someone play the game like Vanessa Russo. She was on from the word go, from that first night when the feeds came on, and she was crying. I mean, after she got over that cry, which I'm not even sure wasn't for show.
It totally wasn't.
She was just amazing to watch. I have never seen a season so thoroughly dominated by someone only to see that person come up short at the end. The people that we've seen dominate seasons, like Dan and Derek, they won their seasons. Vanessa is the only one to really have played a game that just absolutely ruined everybody. But she didn't get it done at the end. She fell short at the finish line, and it's just heartbreaking to see. The hilarious part is that I was rooting for Steve, as you guys remember, and now having looked back on it, I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a bummer that she played so freaking great and she still lost, because she absolutely ran those people up one side of the mountain and down the other. They didn't even know what hit them. And on the jury, they were waiting to give her the
very
money.
polarizing player, Vanessa Russo, but you can't deny played a fantastic game, did a great job. Socially, not as great as some of the others that we mentioned in our top 4, at least in my opinion. But I think that is strategically off the charts. All that game theory stuff, definitely, and her poker and all that. I mean, definitely paid dividends for her entering this game here. Let's continue to talk about Vanessa a little bit more. Alex, why put her at number 2 and not at number 1? What held you back from pushing her to the top of your list?
To me, it's not so much, a knock on Vanessa as it is just a testament to my opinion on Eric Stein. And obviously, like you said, I'm biased. I mean, this is a guy who I did a podcast with and also have gone out drinking with. So this is a guy who I've really picked his brain, and there's no one else on this list like this. I know Eric gets it. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen it from Vanessa, and we know she has the body of work. I've had a conversation from Eric that leads me to believe the exact same. The difference then being his social game is better. So that's my perspective. And of course, it's only my perspective because no one else has had the exchanges that I've had on that level. Like, I've sat down and talked to him, and I really know that he understands everything Vanessa did, and I believe Eric could have implicated it. I totally believe that he's someone that, obviously, a couple of people have said that they think he was helped by, being America's player. I think that's nonsense. I think you took away moves that he could have made. You know what I mean? If he's allowed his full bag of tricks, it can only help him. I don't see how that could hurt him. To me, self-awareness is really big in this game. It's the only knock on Vanessa's game. The rest of it is flawless, but she has no self-awareness. And to me, that's not a knock on Eric's game either. And I don't really have a knock on Eric's game other than I have yet to see him play his own game. I've seen him play the closest thing he was allowed to play to his own game, and he crushed it. So I have no reason not to believe that if you take away those barriers, that it wouldn't even just be better. So that's my thinking. And of course, it's very, very close.
Taran, do you feel that you're biased, or can you, because there's a lot of people after this thing that are going to be like, all right, these guys are clearly just biased. That's why Eric's number 1. What do you say to those people with Eric? Defend your ranking of Eric Stein as the best Big Brother player to never win.
Those people are dead to me because seriously, hold on. I am not biased. Give me a break here. I at least to the possible extent of who I am as a person, it goes against everything in my being to be biased towards something. I'm a science person. I go with facts, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he's a better player than Vanessa. I'm not sure that he's a better player than Danielle, but I watched Vanessa. I was supporting her the whole way through. I watched her game very, very closely because I was reporting on this season, and she had a lot of flaws that we pointed out throughout the season. And I think when we look at the season as a whole, when we look back to it, we see the end result, which is that she came really close. But another result is that she came really close to losing a lot throughout the season. And we also see that a large part of her success was the fact that her alliance won, I believe it was 8 out of 11 or 9 out of 12 HOHs in the season. I mean, the fact that happened and she still had a lot of trouble making it to the end, I think says a lot. That said, I think she's an amazing player. I think that when it came down to it, even though socially she made a lot of mistakes by, yelling at people, crying, putting people off, exposing that she was a good player often, she always ended up making the right move numerically. And that's something I really appreciated. And it's something that made her get all the way to the end, because even though she occasionally tilt the odds away from her favor, she had already tilted the numbers in her favor so that when it came down to luck, she was able to succeed. And ultimately, her failure is in the social game. She didn't see that Steve had caught on to her. She thought her odds were better than they were. Ultimately, it came down to a 50-50 chance and she lost it. Eric, on the other hand, we saw, I mean, it's such a unique scenario. We've never seen anybody play without the ability to control their actions in the game. Like, the most concrete action you have is voting and nominating people. Like, those are the basics of Big Brother, and he wasn't in control of it. He couldn't control who he voted for. He had to try and persuade people to go up on the block whether or not he wanted them to, because when he tried to sandbag it, they yelled at him and told him like that was against the rules and they'd punish him if he didn't actually try. I just think that it's kind of unfair that I have him in at number 1 because it's such a unique situation. I I can't imagine picturing anybody in the scenario. Vanessa, for sure, if she wasn't in control of who she tried to nominate, who she was could vote for, I think she would have failed pretty quickly. She relied on those things like most people rely on those things. Eric managed to make it so far without any of those things. He managed to make it about halfway through before it even was a problem for him. And the only reason it was a problem was because of a banner plane that ruined his game. There were so many factors that came into ruining Eric's game, and he still managed to make it really far. That's why I have him at number 1. And again, it's not a solid position, as it's not as solid as I have Dan above Will, which also isn't that solid, but it's not as solid as some other decisions I have, because there's a lot less data on it. And I think that if we saw Eric play again on his own, there's absolutely a chance that he could totally fail, and we'd see that he was just good at surviving a severe disadvantage, but wasn't good at being in charge. And maybe that's the case. But from what I've seen and from what I think would happen, I think that he would do really well. And I think that it's amazing what he managed to accomplish with so many disadvantages in Big Brother 8. So that's why I have him there. It's not because I like him. It's not because I'm biased, at least to what's possible for me to not be biased. I was a huge fan. I am a huge fan of Danielle. Jason is the person I like most on this list, and he's not number 1, and I could have easily put him at number one. So I just think he's number 1. He might not be. That's how it is.
All right. Well, again, it's tough. Once you get into that top tier, I think it's really tough. I think we all are we're pretty much on the same page with that top 4. And then after that, it's just kind of a mishmash of stuff. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I will say the one thing, and Brent, I want you to touch upon this. Eric did have his flaws too, right? I mean, and that's not something that Taran or Alex have talked about, or I have talked about. So what are some flaws in Eric's game that maybe we're not bringing up here that people are probably going to talk about in the comments after this thing?
Well, I don't know that he necessarily has flaws. All these people at the top, at least the top 3, at least, let's say the top 2 from my perspective, I don't think they really have any flaws. Either one of them have any great flaws in their game. But the reason that I have Eric at number 2 is because it's like an I in school, like the letter I, like it's an incomplete. I don't know what would have happened if Eric had not had one hand tied behind his back. I mean, maybe he would have totally failed. I mean, maybe he would have won. I don't know. I know what happened with Vanessa. She played a monster, mighty game. Eric couldn't do that, but by consequence, I could not see that. So I do feel like you guys are giving him credit for what could have been rather than what was. And that's my problem with putting him at number 1. I don't begrudge you for that. But on the other hand, where's the evidence to support that? It just doesn't seem like it's there. And I do feel like the evidence is there with Vanessa. And
I do agree. I do agree with that. And like I said, it is kind of basing it off because we don't have enough information to know for sure. The thing is, with Vanessa, with Danielle, I see visible flaws in their game, like a lot of them, especially with Vanessa. And with Eric, I really don't. I didn't see really any flaws other than the fact that he was limited by the construct of the game. I think the way he came off to America, he came off as flawed. The way that he talked about Nick, I think maybe if you want to talk about metagame, that wasn't smart because it kind of turned America against him a little bit. But as far as how he interacted with the people inside of the game, it was pretty fantastic. And even the way he did ultimately get caught by Dick and Danielle, but I mean, there was a banner plane, and the fact that he was put in that position in the first place, so maybe that's the one flaw I can see in his game, the way that he handled Nick and the fact that he got caught definitely wasn't the greatest. But other than that, there's really nothing. And I can name a bunch of flaws in Vanessa's game, and I can name at least a few in Danielle's game. So when it's I can see more information about these people and they have flaws, I don't see as much information about this person, but I don't see any flaws. It's just it's really up in the air for me, and that's why I think I went with Eric, but I could have gone with Danielle. I could have maybe even gone with Vanessa. I probably would have put Danielle ahead of her, but that's just the way I see it.
Alex, both of these people, Vanessa and Eric Stein, both of these guys were people tried to backdoor them. Going back to the 6-finger plan. Thank you, Nokomis.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yes, and both of them managed to get themselves out of that. So that's the common theme between both of them. And really, that's honest, in my opinion, that's the hardest move to pull off in Big Brother is getting backdoored, having, you know, the HOH in the house or whatever against you, and then flipping things back into your favor. Which of these two did you find more impressive in that moment? Eric getting backdoored by Danielle or Vanessa, or at least attempting to get backdoored by Danielle, and then Vanessa attempting to be backdoored by Becky?
Oh no! I can't hear him.
No, I can't hear him either. Brent, can you not
Sorry.
hear him?
I had some dog issues going on in the background, so I cut myself off for a minute and I forgot to come back. That's my mistake. Yeah, no, it's tough to to rank those two. I think especially because 17 is so fresh in my mind, and 8, it's been a while since I've watched it, but yeah, that's absolutely the reason they're at the top of my list. And I think, for me, obviously, probably recency bias is a big factor, but I really, from a TV entertainment standpoint, probably from a strategic standpoint, I appreciate Eric's more because it was first. It was, really impressive because it had never really been done before. Here, you think this is a plan that's established for someone to not be able to wiggle out of, and then he wiggles out. So, I mean, yeah, that was more. That really gripped me more in the moment, I think. However, this past summer was a really, really fun one where, Becky was so sure that she's like just refusing conversation. She's just sipping the wine, just laying back. Man, that was really great TV. So like, if I have to pick which one I enjoyed more, it might be 17 for the sheer reason that, just the way it played out was so great. And again, it speaks to the fact that, like you said, these are situations that people don't come back from. That's why Becky was so sure the door's already slammed shut and she doesn't need to entertain Vanessa's words. And it totally came back to bite her because that's what a great player can do. And that's why you need to never discount somebody until they're physically removed from the house.
Yeah, I think you're totally awesome for bringing this up because I totally forgot to. And it's such a great comparison and it's really interesting because the way that they survived was so different because Eric survived on his relationships. They went to Jessica and tried to get her in on the plan to backdoor him. And she just went straight to Eric and was like, hey, they're trying to do this. And then he gathered up his troops and was like, I'm already safe. Even if they put me up, I'm already safe. And there was nothing that Dick and Danielle could do. Whereas with Vanessa, she survived in spite of her relationships. She got saved by her enemies because she had set herself up in a position where she was necessary to them. She was put in that, like, when Becky nominated her, she didn't see it coming. She wasn't warned by the people close to her, even though they knew ahead of time. She was abandoned by her friends. But then her enemies were like, actually, we can't get rid of Vanessa. We have to get rid of Shelley first because Shelley's more of a threat to us. And it's the complete opposite. And I like I said, I think it was Vanessa's fault that she was put in that position because she made the moves that she did. To some extent, it wasn't her fault because the Battle of the Block just suddenly ended, and that was definitely bad luck for her. But the way she handled her previous HOH is what put her there. It's what turned Becky off in the first place, and she got caught by Becky playing both sides, and that's why she was in that position. Whereas with Eric, again, he was in a position where he was forced to vote hinky votes, and then a banner plane came and said that he was a liar. So it wasn't nearly as much his fault that he was put in that situation. But very interesting to see the different ways that they were able to survive, very different styles of play.
Yeah, and it goes to show that Vanessa, well, both of them really are very strategic. Vanessa, though, was so strategic and so much about the moves and the numbers and everything like that, whereas Eric was more so about the social manipulation of the game. Brent, yes, you want to hop in?
Well, I just want to say that, it's amazing that I heard the word incentivize so many times during Big Brother 17. I never thought I would hear the words banner plane that many times during this podcast.
It's a big factor.
So somebody mentioned in the chat room Yeah, whatever. So Llama wants to know. He's making a point that this is right after Big Brother All Stars, and social media wasn't a big deal at the time, but people were calling in about America's Player, and there's been a lot of rumors about production interference or helping of Eric staying in the game, specifically in regards to Dustin and Amber, them switching their votes from Kale to save Eric at that point. And as much as we can knock, I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of unknowns that happen with America's Player. And it would not surprise me, especially after what I saw during Big Brother 13, for them in Big Brother 8 to say, we really want to save this guy, and this Kale is not really bringing it. So let's see what we can do over here. So I grant you the fact that the banner plane might have outed him a little bit, and he couldn't even control that. But it doesn't seem like he necessarily saved himself of his own volition there.
I also think, too, if we're going to argue things that screwed Eric over, I mean, America telling him to vote to keep Dick, not being able to use the veto because production told him that America didn't have enough time to vote on it, that kind of stuff. I mean, if we're going to talk...
He should have done it anyway.
It goes in the DR. Yeah, you can't use the veto.
He should have done it anyway. What are they going to do?
Yes, I am using.
Yeah. What are they going to do? Come out and tell him?
That would be amazing.
Yep.
No, I think if he was a second-time player, maybe he would have done that. But I feel like people on their first time are much more, I can tell you from experience, people are very much more nervous of production and doing breaking the rules.
And their team of lawyers. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Yes. Once you get out and then look at everything, then I think people look at things a little differently. But there we have it, guys. That's it. That's our ranking of the best, the top 12 best non-winning Big Brother players ever. So any final thoughts that we guys want to talk about before we wrap things up? Taran, we'll go around the horn. We'll start with you.
Well, I do want to say,
go ahead. Okay.
With the plane, if somebody genuinely, like, if a plane had come over in the Big Brother 16 house saying Derek is a liar, like, I think we would have seen a much different game. Like, we cannot underestimate just how big of an impact that was for the game that he was playing, which was trying to be under the radar as far as that goes. And we saw Derek be completely paranoid about anytime somebody was shouting, anytime there was a plane, he was the first one to be like, guys, we got to get out of here, because he did not want his secret revealed. I just think we should not overlook it. In general, I think this was a pretty good list. Somebody that I think goes underrated that I didn't have a chance to mention. First of all, Brittany from Big Brother 12. I think
Brittany Haynes.
Yes. I think when she came back in season 14, she was very good, and she was actually pretty good in Big Brother 12, despite not seeing the brigade. She did really well. She was the only person left after the brigade wiped everyone else out. She also did really well in Big Brother 14. Somebody else that nobody really ever mentions, Roddy from season 3, I think was very good. There's a reason that Danielle called him the devil. He was her main adversity. He was her biggest obstacle in the way of getting to the end. He almost convinced Amy to sacrifice her life in the game for him. The only reason he couldn't was because he knew that if he lied, they would know. The jury would know, and he wouldn't win in the end. He was restrained in a way that Danielle wasn't, which is why Danielle lost the jury vote. So I think he's somebody that nobody ever really talks about. And obviously Nicole from Big Brother 2.
Yes.
I think people respect her game for the most part. So yeah.
Very persuasive.
Brent, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, I thought this was a great podcast. I thought there was at least some semblance of uniformity among our top 3 to 4 people. So that was nice to see. I did have, like I said earlier, I had Erica Landon on my list. Again, I don't know how she doesn't make a list when she has 2 awesome finishes essentially back to back, and 4 and 7. Then, like I said, Frankie Grande made my list. Natalie Martinez also made my list at number 9. And let's see, Austin, even though I hate him and he's blocked me on Twitter, made my list at number 12. And Jesse Goddard's Mr. Spectacular made my list at number 15. So my list was definitely a lot more eclectic. I decided to have some fun. I mean, I can take Jesse out and put, freaking who else? Oh, like somebody like Alex had Sharon on his list. I mean, sure, I can put her in there, but I wanted to give credit to Jesse's game that he played in Big Brother 11 before it was ripped out from under him, and essentially 2 unfair twists in back-to-back seasons. So, but a great time today. I really
Alex,
enjoyed it.
final thoughts of today, and since we're just doing it, just who is your other honorable mention? Because it seems like this is round 2 of all honorable mentions here.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. The couple people I had on my list that weren't mentioned, obviously Big Brother 2, Nicole, Sharon from Big Brother 9, as Brent said, and Austin was on my list as well for the sheer, reason that he was able to kind of navigate his way out of some really precarious positions, and he recognized the value of being a large, pathetic guy, which I think is very underrated in the house. So anyways, I think this has been a lot of fun. Obviously, like we said, there's going to be some people who disagree with what we have here. And, there's plenty of names. As I said, I had a big old list that I just slowly whittled down. So I think there's a lot of people you could make the case for getting in there at 14 or 15. And, this is what we came up with. But, I personally, and I know you guys would too, I'd love to hear, if other people have different ideas, if they want to, send us comments or thoughts or stuff like that. I'm really interested to kind of see what kind of debates come out of this. So yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun.
Should be interesting to see the comments after this one compared to the other ones we did.
It should be emphasized, like, this is so much guesswork. Like, if you're
way more than the others.
Yeah, and
way more.
If you're like, oh, they got it so ridiculously wrong, like, all right, like, you're just guessing too. Like, any of us could be wrong. You can't be that sure of it. There's not enough information. So, like, I completely understand if you disagree. You have every right to. But let's admit that this is mostly guesswork. So.
Yeah, nobody is definitively right on a ranking like this. Everybody's got their own opinions, and we definitely want to hear them from you. So definitely leave your comments on RHAPpy.com. Final thoughts from me. Again, I'll give a shout out to him. McRae was on my list as well. I wish we could have figured out a way to get McRae in here, but nobody else was on board. I was on an island once again.
I was close.
What do you know? Love me some McRae Olsen. He's a great dude. Okay. Hashtag for this episode, guys. I think bullshit is probably the best, right?
I love it. I love it because it's like you're
I
mad
agree.
enough to exclaim something, but you're also so mad you can't quite type it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So hashtag bullshit. So if you want to tweet us afterward or after this is over, so if you don't want to leave a comment on the website, tweet us. Let us know what you thought. I'm at Jordan Parhar. Taran is at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at One Lucky Gay, and Alex is at Alex Kidwell. Make sure as well, if you haven't already, subscribe to Reality TV RHAP-ups on iTunes. You can go to robhasawebsite.com/RHAP-ups. You can get every single edition of the RHAPpy Hour. You can get the Challenge Recap podcast with Brian and Allie. They do a great job. You can also get the Bachelor podcast with Amy and Haley, which is coming back, and they just released their first episode in a long time, previewing this season, which it starts on Monday. Ben Higgins is your new Bachelor, and they had Kelly Wentworth and Randy Bailey on. It was a great podcast. Yeah, really. I mean, star-studded lineup. Definitely check that out. If you want to subscribe to the RHAPpy Hour only feed, you can do that as well. robhasawebsite.com/RHAPpy Hour. Subscribe to the Reality TV RHAP-ups on YouTube as well to make sure you see all of our videos. Also, make sure if you haven't already, the best podcast, in my opinion, that I have ever done was recorded last week. Eric Stein and I sat down for 5.5 hours to talk about the OC. So we talked about every season, all the characters, everything. It's a really fun podcast. So highly recommend you check that out. And I'm showing you my biases because I'm talking about the guy I ranked number 1 in the best podcast I did, and whatever. At least I can admit that I'm biased. But if you haven't already, check that out. It's a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Hopefully we'll be back. We'll be back next week. Don't know if we'll have a live show for you, but we will have something in the works. I'll keep I'll post or keep you guys updated on Twitter. You can find all that stuff out there. All right. So for Alex Kidwell, Brent Wolgamott, and Taran Armstrong, I'm Jordan Parhar. Hashtag bullshit. That's hashtag BULLSHIOT. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Peace out.